I tried to take my life 4 times, right?
When you have a society that is deeply confused, that means that they don't know themselves.
Yes.
It means that there's no confidence. Whereas there's no confidence, there are no masters, there are no rulers, and you're operating from the wrong place. Do you believe that there is no time, and how did they solve that there's no time?
There's a couple things.
Do you believe in Satan?
Is what I'm going to say, but Satan is a necessary thing for us to learn.
Oh, you said slavery was a good thing, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Who holds the secrets to the world?
We do, individually and as a collective.
How do we unlock it? You can't be a man if you can't manifest.
Yeah.
Manifest starts with man.
I can't know God if I don't know me. The darkness, the trauma, the history.
When you work for God, He gives you everything.
Are principles that we are to live by in this linear construct we call a reality. But if you don't know what the basis of those are, then you're always going to be lost.
I appreciate my pops for teaching me how to be a guy.
From a boy to a man, and ultimately back into the natural state of being into a God.
As guys, we're supposed to always move with that higher self. I had to be able to execute it. Having knowledge is not power, the execution of knowledge is power.
Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave.
Because the only real knowledge you can get is knowledge of self.
This is the highest level. The highest level is ownership. The highest level is power. The highest level is sovereignty. The highest level is higher consciousness. The highest level is when we own our own culture.
Excellence at a very high level. Not eye level. A high level.
It's time for a high level conversation.
We're here for another high level conversation.
19 keys, and this is a high level conversation.
Tap in with the God.
Peace, family. Welcome back to another high level conversation. Throughout the ages, we have been a witness to many masters. There's been protocols of what some will call ascension. There's been intentional deception to keep you away from understanding the signs and the symbols of what they really mean. And if you allow the deception to work, then you can never become one of the masters. Those who rule, those who govern, those who know thyself. One of the most radical things I can probably say to the world is do not believe in God. But it starts to make sense when I follow that up with know God. See, belief leaves room, and there's room for doubt that starts to be cast based on what one person says, an experience that you go through, and then that connection from your belief starts to become untethered. But when you know something, it just is. When you know yourself, like you know that the sun is going to rise and you have no doubt, you don't need to believe it's going to do, you know it's going to happen. So there's a charge that I want to have because this came to me today. Do not believe in God. Know God. So therefore you stop doubting Him and you stop doubting yourself. When you understand the laws of the universe, you can never be lost because then you have a framework for what to do in every scenario, in every situation. You understand the power of cause and effect. Now, throughout time, there has been many groups that we'll look at, whether it's the Masons, Illuminati, right? Different orders that we can say had esoteric and or occult knowledge. Some of them that got to points of mastery, right? And a lot of people today are trying to follow that pathway of enlightenment and or light. But you have to understand that there's a lot of what we now call misinformation that was purposely put there to deceive you from the true pathway. So those pathways are for the believers. But for those who know, those are the ones who ascend to become the masters. Those are the ones who are in the orders and the clubs and your politicians and your governors. There's a reason why there's so many Masons or 33-degree Masons that become presidents, or they're in Congress, or they run multinational companies and operate billion-dollar funds. What is it about the knowledge and the information? I'm not talking about what the average person knows. I'm talking about what's unknown, but only known to those who understand and have no question in their mind of how to go about using it from that. I would say one of the biggest questions that I get from people, how do you stay so confident? I believe that confidence comes from knowledge, comes from truth, comes from what you know. What you know is not just what's consciously on your mind, but what you align with, the frequency that you're on, but it also comes from your body, right? Many people believe that it is the mind that informs the body, but a lot of times it's the body that informs the mind. There's a psychologist that was given a breakdown on how when a human sees a bear and a forest, the body starts to sweat, blood starts to pump, the heart starts to palpitate, right? Your nervous system reacts, and then it informs your mind, oh, I should be scared. I should be fearful. And I brought that up because I was working out today and I thought I was tired until I realized that that was my body informing the mind. And then I changed it for the mind to inform the body. And therefore it changed the state and the frequency that I was aligned with and attuned. And so I'm here to tell you that when you go through a certain path of discovery, when you get to a certain understanding and you stop believing, you start knowing, right? You stop being the one that is controlled and you start to become the operator in control. You start to be the one that witnesses your life, but also has mastery and control over your life. That's when you start to have protocols of ascension, but they have to be operated within the law. Because there are too many people who sit down but do not act. So Trismegistus, thrice great, was a master of the three planes, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. Today, if we can take you to some of that school of knowledge, through some of that understanding of how to love pain, how to understand the power that exists within you in every single moment, how to disconnect from things so that you can be yourself regardless of what is happening. These powers of detachment, these powers of growth, visualization, clarity, alignment, are how you living at the top floor frequency and operating beyond the veil or what they're trying to keep you away from. You may think you know, but incorrect knowledge will always have you becoming an incorrect master, meaning that you can never truly line up to take your life in the pathway that you think it should be at or where you should be at. The person that I'm sitting with today, he's somebody that has traveled through the triple darkness, physical darkness, spiritual darkness, mental darkness. In the triple darkness is creation. It's where birth happens. And there is beauty in the darkness and there's beauty in the pain, but in darkness, there's no color, there's no light. So most people can't see the beauty in the darkness until it's brought to the light. And I believe that the way that this brother has been crafting himself, he is crafting himself to become a master of self and to teach others how to harness that same power through education, inspiration, reflecting that knowledge in all that he does. And I believe that he's on that pathway of shifting the world. Today, I want to get into his story. I want to get into the knowledge. I want to get into exactly how he can help you within your life as well. Break some of those limiting chains so that you can start to have abundance and clarity on your pathway towards success and manifesting with real action. Today, I have none other than Abundance 10,000, my good brother, Sean Clayton.
Brother, thank you for that. Beautiful, beautiful introduction.
And thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So let's start off with this. Who holds the secrets to the world?
We do, individually and as a collective.
How do we unlock them?
The problem is for all our life, we've been told that we're separate. When I look at you, I see space. When I look at people in this room, I see space. Space has been our biggest deceiver. As, yes, this feels real, this looks real, but it's an illusion because it lives in a vibratory state. It lives in a frequency. When we don't understand that frequency that is manifest from within, that you are my creation and I am yours, at the very same moment, that everything happens all at the same time because there is no time, and we'll get into that in a minute because that'll mess some people up. That the moment that I have the ability to truly know myself, because you were talking about knowing God, I can't know God if I don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to know every part of me. I have to know the darkness, the trauma, the history, what the bottom of my feet feel like, look like. Are they clean? Are they not? I have to have no part of me that I don't understand, that I don't know. If I don't know it, then I don't know God. Because if I am the creator of my life and I was created by that which I am also observing,
Yes,
which
sir.
is vice versa us, like this,
Yes,
this
sir.
is how God is. You know, when they talk about in the Bible, and I don't profess to be any religion, but I've studied a lot of them. Where two or more are gathered, there I am. Because you have to observe each other. Even in the whole process of God creating the universe, if we go down that path, God had to be at a point in time to where it had to question itself, who am I? And then it had to reflect itself into something else, into something else, into something else. And then that had to reflect itself. And it keeps doing itself over and over again, or reproduce. So if we're in this whole concept about reproduction, which is the whole concept around godliness and humanness, and bringing those things together, to know ourselves like no other, at a depth that you have never known yourself before, to be able to sit with yourself. And this is why I know I went through the stuff that I went through in light. You know, the hell and the brimstone that I created for myself, so that I could sit with it and be like, why did I create that to love me? Right? And so whether it was my incarceration or sexual abuse or suicide attempts or sicknesses or whatever I went through in my life, I went through all of those things in order for me to love myself and to know what that looks like, and to have that fullness and confidence in those moments when somebody asks you a question and you can stand without any shame and stand in love and know that this is one of the most abundant things that ever happened to me. That's how you start to shift the paradigm. And that's when this divine flow or this divine energy moves through you based on all the experiences that you've had in life.
You know, I just got a download of Ashe. And it's an acronym, adverse spiritual experiences. You've been through a lot of adverse spiritual experiences.
Like that, yeah.
And you just listed some of them.
Yeah.
I want to start with the abuse.
Yeah.
When I first met you, you speak very passionate and very loud. And the topics that you speak about, to some are very dark.
Yeah.
But you speak about it from a place of detachment, and you speak about it from a place where you process the traumas. As you have been on your healing journey, right, of sexual abuse, how did that affect your ability to manifest in reality? How did you heal through that?
So before, you know, growing up, this happened between 9 and 14 years old. And you are in this process of growing up, your hormones are developing, and then this crazy stuff happens to you for years, over and over and over and over again. And you don't know yourself at that time, right? You hardly know yourself as a child. And then you're looking at your parents and everybody else to be like, hey, tell me who I am. And then you've got these patriarchal entities that come into your life that start to abuse you. Well, then what is, you know, I've got my father who I look up to, but then he's got a whole other life doing a whole thing, you know, Rolling Stone kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then you've got these other men in your life that are also abusing you. So what is it like to be a man? Right? And then you have the examples that are being put out in propaganda of, well, this is what a successful black man looks like. You know, you see, well, if you know, are into, you know, whether it's drugs or whether you're into, you know, being rude to women or, you know, objectifying them, whatever it might be, that's what it, in some ways, when you look at TV, you look at music videos, you look at that, well, that's what it's like to be a black man. And so you chase after those things, you become a womanizer. You're like, oh, I need to be an athlete. So I got really good at athletics. I ended up breaking my back in that process, trying to do the whole athletic thing, but got good at it. You end up saying, okay, well, how's the white man going to affirm me? So I started to use the external illusion to do whatever it was that would affirm me, because I was so broken from the inside based on the experience that I had. And I was told that all of these things were wrong. Because when you're going through that sexually traumatic experience, you're crying. I was a runt. I was always small until about 6-7 years ago. Right. And so I'm going through all of these experiences and I'm sitting here saying, well, I've got to fight my way all the time. So you develop a reactive mentality. You create this whole thing around your, sympathetic nervous system where you're fight, flight, hide, freeze, whatever, all the time. But I got good at that. So I was able to be a high performer in athletic, full ride track scholarship. I was able to get an amazing job out of college. And so I'm working for, we can call it the man, but I'm working not for myself, but for somebody else. Fastest vice president in my company, but I had to put so much effort into somebody else's construct. I knew nothing of myself. So in order for me to be anything, I just had to be affirmed by the world. And whenever that broke, this is when the depression kicked in, is that, if I didn't perform at work or all of a sudden a client got upset with me or something went wrong, this was the illusion teaching me a lesson. I didn't know it. I'm like, oh, my life's over. If I've been married 3 times, now I'm my 4th. Okay. But I know what it's like to truly be married now, but I'm chasing after women. Now let me just capture that because I don't know what a family looks like. And I go through these processes over and over again in order to have somebody affirm me. But then if my wife wanted to leave me or something was wrong or, God forbid, I wasn't great in bed that night, whatever you want to call it, I felt like the world ended. And so essentially I was creating my own depression from this moment in time that I didn't see as a gift. And how do you see that as a gift when society tells you that's not a gift? Society tells you that if you are sexually abused, you have a path you're going to go down and it looks this way. You go to therapists, they tell you that it's going to be this way. You don't talk about it with people. And then all of a sudden you hide it and it starts to manifest itself inside of the chakras of your body or the energy centers. You get sick, right? I ended up getting a thyroid condition because I never spoke my truth. And so I had to have that radiated at some point in my life because I developed Graves' disease because I wasn't talking about what was wrong with me. And I hid that till I was 37, 38 years old. I'm 45. So give some perspective on it. And so all of those different areas about becoming abundant, you have these momentary windows of abundance, but everything slips through your hands over and over and over and over again. So I could make a couple $100,000. I could make $500,000 and then it would slip through my hands all the way to the point to where I started a company, with a family member, and that company grew to a $20 million company. We started making, tons of money, and that got taken away from me because I still didn't know myself. So the universe, which is you, will give yourself the lessons in order for you to be able to wake up to remember how to actually create from the inside out, not the outside in. And so all of those opportunities were gifts that I had to give myself to know how bad it could possibly get, to know how good it could possibly be. Make sense? Yeah.
Makes full sense. And I believe this topic to be so necessary because I believe that you said something very powerful. You developed a thyroid condition, not speaking your truth.
Yes.
And that goes back to that mind-body connection.
100%.
Our body will hold the trauma until our mind speaks the truth. We have to release it. Otherwise, we hold it somewhere until we let it go.
Yes.
And it gets me thinking about what so many people are suffering through, right? Especially as we think about the law of gender.
Yes.
I think there's so much confusion today. And when you have a society that is deeply confused, that means that they don't know themselves.
Yes.
It means that there's no confidence, right? And whereas there's no confidence, there are no masters. There are no rulers, right? And you're operating from the wrong place, right? So confidence is a sign of health, right? It's a sign of a healthy individual being in tune with self, operating correctly, thinking about themselves, and having a relationship with the world in a correct way. Because what you're seeing is an individual free from the attachments of overthinking about self, of insecurities, right? Of fears. And they're moving as they should, the way a child would move.
Yes.
Before all of these attachments and things turn you into this personality that's trying to protect itself at all times.
Yeah.
And so you lose that freedom. And so as we talk about the adverse childhood or the spiritual experiences, I want to understand a little bit of how that affected the law of gender for you, right?
Yeah, great question.
How did as a witness of self, an observer of self, right? How did that change that perception, and how did you break out of it?
So I'm going to say something before we go into that. Life is not about what you've been taught, but it's about what you learn. Okay. And so what I was taught was this is how you treat a woman, right? What I was taught is that a man looks like this on the outside. I wasn't taught what a man looks like on the inside. I wasn't taught what it's like to embody masculinity while also considering femininity at the same point. So going through what I went through at that time, where there was a sexual abuse, and then saying, okay, well, now I got to chase after hypermasculinism, right? And what does that even look like? I don't know. There's no real definition for it, but I can see in my society as a black man, well, this is how I need to show up in the world. So I became that. Okay. I became somebody who wasn't loyal to anyone, right? I became somebody that even when I was attempting to be loyal, my head was turning everywhere, looking at something else. When you get truly into the law of gender, what is femininity and what is masculinity? Well, if you know anything about Jewish mysticism, I talk about a lot of different stuff here. Is you've got this framework from Abrahamic religions called the Kabbalah, where they talk about it, Sefer Yetzirah. I don't know if you've read it before. On the right side, you've got this tree of life. And to become masculine, there are principles of masculinity that they've defined many, 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 many years ago, if time is a thing. And being masculine means that you have wisdom. Being masculine means you walk with love, right? Being masculine, in those framework means that you have that connection so that you can also understand how to guard and protect the feminine while they also guard and protect you. The feminine means that they see the future and they understand what's coming, right? They actually truly go through the process of walking in strength. So strength is in their whole DNA, which is why they can birth a child that we can't even get close to. They can hold that child. They can do things that we can't do, right? As their physical avatar. They have an aspect of empathy and surrender that we can't even come close to in this avatar of a man. But if I recognize what it looks like, I can embody some of those traits in order to fit my puzzle piece correctly into my divine feminine counterpart. And whether they're, we can talk hetero, homo, whatever it might be, that has nothing to do with it. Somebody can embody that in whatever gender or whatever sexual orientation they want to be. But the reality of it is that, the way we were constructed in this, you were given these body parts, dick and a penis, right? You were given a vagina, you were given breast, you were given this anatomical aspect of yourself. And when you have that and you surrender into what you've been given, you can walk with that frequency. And when you know how it was constructed based on the laws of the universe that we have, then you can show up fully embodied as that. So for me, when I went through the process of saying, okay, I'm not doing all this hyper stuff. I'm not walking with any wisdom because I'm not learning, right? I'm just being taught and I'm carrying that teaching in order to get affirmation, right? I'm not moving in love because I didn't even understand what love was. I was taught what love was, but that wasn't love. That was fear, right? That was somebody else's version of it that was bastardized through generations to say, well, if you do this, this is what love looks like. And it was a conditionality of existence. And so being in my masculinity took time for me to have that self-awareness. And there were some books that I went through, but it really was me saying, okay, this is the construct of what our linear path looks like. And now that I know that linear path, I could start bending it into my reality. And that's when I start to become more expansive and move from this I state into this collective we state to where I'm considering not only me, but everybody else. Because the other third principle of being masculine is victory. But we think victory means that I got to beat somebody. It means that I have to, on the battlefield, I'm somebody else is losing and I'm winning. That's not victory. Victory is where we all win. Victory is where we all collectively ascend. And so how do we do that? And if somebody is losing, how can I bring them up? And if they did lose, how can I help them learn the lesson of what losing looks like in order to become a victory? And this is how the trauma that I walked through started to create a different dynamic in myself. And I see every bit of it as my greatest gift.
Did it ever leave you questioning yourself to where, because and this is what I'm trying to get as far as that observer's eye. From a victim's consciousness when going through, I know there's a point where people blame themselves. They're trying to figure out why me. And so as you speak about going into hyper masculinity and things of that nature, it's to make up for, right? Because, people that I've had these conversations with that have been through these sort of traumas, some people spend a lifelong trying to get back to themselves. And some people, they go, another route because they don't feel like a man internally.
Mm.
So when they embody that feeling, then they seek the opposite of that.
Yes.
Right. And so if you don't feel like a man, then sometimes they seek a man.
Right.
So whether that's through an OG, a mentor, a gang, right? A male figure in their life, right? Because you're trying to embody and become, you want to be around that so you can have that. So as we move past this subject and going into the healing, you kind of went on like your ideology and your philosophy. And I feel like that's where you are now in the way that you explained.
Yes. Where was I then?
Right. But what were you then as far as the tools that you were using to get through the darkest part of that, to get to where you are now, a very successful a man that has a high level of consciousness and clarity about himself?
Whenever you're building a building, you have to lay a lot of bricks. Okay. So, and in order to get the bricks, you got to go to a rock quarry and tear that motherfucker up. Okay. So I'm going to use some cursing if you don't mind, right?
Say what you got to say.
Right.
We speak truth on this platform.
And so I had to tear up a lot of rocks. I didn't even know what that looked like at the time. I didn't know the man that I was becoming at all. Okay. I would say the healing that I went through is I tried to take my life 4 times, right? I don't recommend that for anybody listening, right? But I will say that was part of it. Me making some really bad decisions about mentors that I was leaning into so that I could know what it's like to truly mentor somebody, to truly teach somebody. My very close family member started a business with them. I ended up incarcerated because I took the hit for the things that they were doing and spent 4 years incarcerated. That was a gift. That was part of the healing. At the time, I had no healing practices. I was trying to going to all the therapists I could go to. I was taking antidepressants. I was, chasing after, whatever other woman would come along because I thought that was going to fill the void within myself if they affirmed me. So I was looking at the illusion and figuring out how to make it as magnificent as I could based on what I've been taught from the examples of what I attempted to try to be like, not knowing myself. And that was part of my healing journey. Because I've done it means we don't have to do it anymore. And the problem with us as men, when we're teaching individuals, is we don't expose in vulnerability our truth and our journey. And then people keep repeating it, right? So if you take somebody like a Drake, or you take somebody who's wildly successful, or who's somebody like yourself, right? And you've been through life and you don't have that vulnerability, but you've gone through this journey and now somebody else is stuck in that journey and you don't put it out there, they're going to repeat the pattern. And they're going to repeat the pattern until somebody puts a stake in the ground and stops it. And for me, it was me putting a stake in the ground. And I was terrified to talk about sexual abuse. I was terrified for the longest time to talk about my incarceration or to talk about, all the failed marriages or attempted suicides. Like I used to, wear stuff over here and I got this tattooed on the other side because I didn't want people to see, right, these wounds that I had. I didn't want people to know that, hey, don't talk to these people in my life because you'll learn more about me, right? But if I talk about it first and I put it out there first and I do it with, you talk about detachment, but I attach detachment to acceptance. So for me, it's accepting everything that allows me to detach, to look at it from the perspective of God, right? If you want to call it that, or the all of source or whatever, because God said, hey, I created it and let it go, right? And created every variant perspective that could have ever existed. And then through that, there's no intervening that God is doing at that point. It's just out and gone. And all of that time, all of that space is doing its thing, and it's all in love and all in frequency and all in the vibration of oneness. And so when we look at something horrific that has happened, and that brokenness that we have judged in our aspect of righteousness, it's only our opinion. It's not the truth. Because in God's eyes, it's all accepted, all detached, all love, everything.
Take me through 2 moments in your life.
Okay.
You said you had 4 attempts to unalive yourself.
Yes.
Which would be one of the darkest and lowest points.
Yeah.
And then you also have a very great deal of financial success.
Yeah.
This point where you cross over, where you like, wow, a lot of this work, all this work that I've been doing, it reached and culminated to this point where you feel at the highest and the most joy. I want you to take me through the moment of the frequency and what you were thinking and feeling in that last attempt, and how you were feeling and thinking right at that most joyous moment, specifically of financial success.
So it's interesting, when I tried to take my life is when I had probably the first peak of financial success, which is interesting, right? Because I had built a shell of life that was so fragile based on what everybody told me was good about Sean. Anytime any of that broke, I felt like I broke. So the first time that I ever tried to take my life, it was when it was in a relationship, and I had built so much into that relationship that I was like, okay, when that was about to break and I saw it breaking, I validated myself off of that, because it was like one of the first concepts of family that I had that was my family. Because I grew up in a family that it was like, oh, you go through sexual abuse, your dad's doing this, your mom's doing this, all of this crazy stuff. My mom had a drinking thing. My dad, was completely, not faithful to my mother. You see these things happen. So it's like, well, I'm going to construct a family. I mean, I got married at 20 years old. So I'm like, oh, let me just get married and let me do this. And so whenever that didn't feel, and it wasn't the her that was the lack of validation, it was the fact that I didn't feel like I was able to recreate a container of safety for myself. So I was like, well, if I can't do this for myself, what's the point? And at that moment in time, and this was a little bit further along, but I was making a couple $100,000 a year. And that was to me a lot, because I didn't have much, my dad had a lot growing up, but he never really shared with our family. And so through that, I was like, well, let me just end this. And I, grabbed a knife and slit my wrist at the time. The minute I did it, I realized I made a mistake.
Yeah.
So that minute I was like, well, number one, it hurt like a motherfucker, right? And number two, I'm seeing this blood pouring out of my body.
Yeah.
That is a wake-up call like none other. And you say, well, if I ever were to do this again, I'm not going to do it this way. Called the ambulance, went to the hospital, they stitched me up, and I lost all the feeling in my hands at that time. And so then you start going through life, and, another thing hits.
Not to interrupt your wisdom. Yeah. What was the feeling? Was it shame? Was it guilt? Was it fear? Is it abandonment? Like, what was that emotion
when I
wanted
to do it?
Yeah.
It was abandonment. It was emptiness. It was shame for not being able to create a family. It was shame for feeling like I was failing and seeing it happening becoming like my father. It was that type of stuff that I felt at that time.
And I say that because I always tell, shame is a sign to tell you to do a U-turn.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And unfortunately, some people get stuck on it as a dead end.
Yeah.
And when you live there, shame will destroy you from the inside out.
Okay.
Because it's not something that you should feel for a very long time, because it makes you feel like you're not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you through a nihilistic, way of thinking about the world. This is all for nothing. What am I worth? Why would I be here? And those thoughts, the only way you feel like you can control anything, right, is through just imploding. Yeah. Let me just end it all. It's the only moment of control that you can get, that you start to think of.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that's why I'm asking you about the emotion, because there are a lot of people who may be in that particular frequency of shame. And you have to understand that it produces these thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not until you shift to another, frequency amongst the ladder of emotions that you can even live another life.
Right.
So now I want to go to one of your most joyous moments that's also connected to success. And we can go to just a joy that's connected outside of success. But like, I want to go to where you're your most financially successful you've ever been. Right? And where is that? And what main emotion you feeling then?
I mean, right now.
Yes, sir.
Candidly. That feeling you get when you hear a song and you get that tingle, like Whitney Houston hit a note or whatever, Michael Jackson, it's like that song and you're like, oh, I feel that. I actually get it right now. Like the tingle down the spine. That's like always on. Right. And I don't even know what that feeling is called, but it's beyond love. Nothing's beyond love, because love is just the frequency that connects everything. But it is what we call three-dimensional love. It's beyond that. You could call it some version of enlightenment or peace but it's a frequency where the truth of yourself at the deepest level, the truth of the universe, and you can alchemize anything in your life. And so you also recognize that it's not about grabbing and holding. Like, I know for myself that I can alchemize and assist any amount of money to move through anything. Is it for me to keep? No. It's for me to receive and to give. So as long as these hands are balanced, I'm doing my part, and I'm the richest and most wealthy that I could ever be. And through that, the people that want to surround you are, billionaires and actors and people who have some kind of a space within themselves that needs to be full, because you are emitting such an energy that it becomes magnetic, and it is not you at the end of the day. It is all of us. It is we. So when I look at the experiences that I had when I was outside, I was finishing a phone call. This guy walks up to me. He's trying to get to Adam Street. I have no idea where Adam Street is. And I really couldn't tell him. I looked on my phone and we were kind of working through it. But, I'm like seeing him as a version of me, because I would want to be seen at that moment, and showing him that compassion. Or a homeless person that's on the street. You can't save everybody, but we could save ourselves in the recognition of that person. I can send them all the love, and all the frequency was just as good as $1, just as good as $100. Because with that observation of them as a frequency, because we're all frequency, we're all vibration, me being able to observe them sends them a different intention that at some point they will integrate, either in this life or another. But it's seeing the world that way, and being, because money just comes in now, but it's not about how much I have. It's about what I can do with it, and how I can implement it, and how I can move it into the world with integrity, with truth, with honesty, with vulnerability, and tell everybody what I'm doing and not be ashamed of it. And that's that feeling now. That's what this feels like. But it's this moment right now.
That to me sounds like a mix between a joy and peace.
Yeah.
Right. And those are higher frequencies than love.
Yeah.
And when we're in that, it gives us a different perspective. What we feel is different, but it's such an attractive energy, because everybody wants to feel joy and everybody wants to have peace.
Yes.
So if we're emanating that, and somebody comes close to us physically, that they can feel that from you, right? Then they start mimicking you to try to feel that within themselves.
100%.
Right? We mirror each other, right? We want to taste the same food you taste and walk your path so we can feel what it's like to be at that frequency, to be at that top floor, right? And so I've been deep on getting people to understand how, and being very bioconscious, right? And emotionally conscious, so that when they want to make those shifts in their life, they can understand where I'm at and where I need to be, where I want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so in that space where you are now, I don't know your pockets, but making millions of dollars, right? Attached to billionaires, being able to fly wherever you want to, create what you want to, helping other people have that integration within themselves so that they can operate at their highest level. That's a completely different reality. And in order to shift reality, you have to shift emotional states so you can make those quantum jumps in life.
Yes.
Right? You watch movies about multiple dimensions. A person to shift, go into a different dimension.
Yep.
But what that shift really is an emotional state.
It is.
Right? Now, the thing about it is you can shift. And let's say that there's, you imagine yourself as a billionaire. You imagine what the frequency, the emotion, right? The thought process you have to emanate to be there. You can start emulating that right now, right? Emulating what your highest self must feel all the time, and what frequency they must emanate to be where they are at that plane consistently.
Yes.
The problem is a person then looks around at their environment, they look at their bank account, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the doubt of belief comes in, because you have to know it. You have to be it. When you be it, that means you know it.
Yes.
Right? And that means you're operating there, and then your environment starts to change towards the frequency in which you live.
Yeah.
It's then only a matter of time. Right?
Yep.
Now we're going to get into the construct of time, because you say time don't exist and you want to eliminate time. But, time is a very interesting thing to play with, because And we look at it in, very linear way.
Mm-hmm.
The arrow of time, we point it backwards or forwards and things of that nature, which is, of course, incorrect. But, if we want to go to that higher plane and we want to ascend, you have to always operate at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell people to live at 100%, how to shift and how to do these things, you can tell it to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
It's the few who know,
Mm-hmm.
right? That makes the change. It's the
Yeah.
few who know that get it. It's how a man can go from his darkest to the light.
Yep.
Right? To where somebody else that's listening say, well, damn, I've been through the same Ashe. I've been through the adverse spiritual experiences, but I haven't been able to transmute that darkness into light,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way you have. But darkness is a gift
Right.
because it is where you transform.
Yep.
It is where you become a more dense human being,
Yep.
right? And anytime you go through something, it is rooting you to become even stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger.
I love him.
He's not just telling us we can be gods, he's showing us as well.
That young man is so strong, and he's blazing the way for us to change our lives.
Really important way for my son to get the message that I teach. He'll respect it more coming from a young, solid black man than even him hearing it from me. That's the win,
He is exactly what the world and the youth needs right now.
We're talking about preparing the communities for innovation, right? For transformation. We're moving into a new global economy.
And I love coming out to these events to get that in-person connection.
It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad to have been able to be a part of the presence of him and his team.
It's really important that we have that type of leader pushing that type of message.
This was just to show y'all what's possible. We breaking down barriers, we breaking down borders, and we taking over everything.
Y'all give it up for 19 Keys!
Now I want to get into the principles of the universe that align with this transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wants to follow your path and wants to understand the science of self,
Mm-hmm.
how do they then begin from where they are in the darkness to reaching where you are in the light?
There's a couple things, and I'm gonna baseline this with some principles. One, the first principle is that feelings and emotions are not the same thing. Okay. Feelings, what you feel. That's why we call it a feeling in your body, right? So for me, you'll meet somebody, all of a sudden you feel something in your stomach. That's not the emotion.
Yeah.
All right. We then create what we've been taught by society to then create an emotion to then judge that feeling, right? So when you can disconnect those two things, and we'll talk about what you were mentioning a minute ago, is when you can have the emotion, I always say move into the feeling. There's a divine energy that attaches to the feeling inside of every energy center of your body, because we have 7 of them, which we'll talk about the 7 Hermetic Principles in a second and why this number 7 is so important. But when I have the ability to move away from the emotions and recategorize those emotions as the proper feeling of the energy of the divine, I'm using the emotions now as fuel, because this is just the game. Me playing the game to be like, oh, okay, there's this emotion over here that I need to judge or feel, and I've been taught it. The minute I start feeling that emotion or start putting myself in that emotional state, I'm like, oh, this is me fucking with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, like, well, I'm not going to go down that path because I know that emotion is just shame. And it's an objectivity to the emotions that we have that have kept us reactive. The next principle, once you understand that you no longer become reactive, you move from reactive to responsibility. Is you say, okay, what's the difference between the two? Okay. Well, responsibility is my ability to respond. Okay. Not my reaction. My reaction means I'm not in charge. It means I'm not in influence. We could call it control. Right. But when I respond, I'm in full responsibility, and I have the ability to respond to everything in my life. And I do it from a space of love. If love is the gateway to joy and peace, then all I have to do is make sure that I'm slathering love all over my responses. Now, these are like baseline principles that help individuals reconstruct the thoughts, because I'm going to walk through these 7 laws of the universe, Hermetic Principles. And what I teach in this, I have a class called Science of You. And what I teach is that you have 9 dimensions of time, or 9 dimensions of existence, not even time, of existence. And you have 7 laws of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
You put those two things together, 7 times 9 is 63. So you have 63 different versions of opportunities that you could go through inside of your daily life. Okay. That 63 also has a 0 dimension, which goes to 64. And if you studied I Ching, you studied, the tree of life in the Kabbalah is 32 sphere. You map those two as masculine and feminine, you get 64. In Gene Keys, it's the same thing. I mean, it's fucking everywhere. Okay. So those 64 principles are principles that we are to live by in this linear construct we call a reality. But if you don't know what the basis of those are, then you're always going to be lost. All right. So I'm going to walk through the 7 Hermetic principles. They call them Hermetic principles. It actually comes from Egypt. And there's the Hermetics that are actually behind that in a book called the Metu Netter. And you could start there. You can go into the Kabbalah, you can go into the Emerald Tablets, you can go into any of this stuff, but it's all the same stuff repeated over and over again. It's even in the Bible. It's in the Torah, it's in the Quran, it's in that first book. The 7 days of creation are the 7 principles if you know how to read it. It's all code. So the 7 principles are, the first 3 are principles of what I call isness. Okay. They just are, they just exist. Okay. The first one is mentalism. And mentalism is the universe is mental and the mind of the all. Well, that's a confusing statement for most people. You read it and you're like, what does that mean? It just means thoughts become things. What I think from the mind attaches to the universal mind, attaches to the mind of myself. And the mind is not the brain. The mind is the brain and the heart put together. Okay. So when you can attach those two and you feel what you think and you know that that's truth, then what you emanate into reality is your reality. Okay. So you have to check your thoughts so that those thoughts are actually in resonance of the divine energy within yourself. So that's like the first principle. We call that the Father if you understand the Holy Trinity. This whole thing, they do the Illuminati of the first 3 principles of this isness of these universal laws. Then everything is vibration. Everything is energy. They've proven this out in quantum physics. They can go and look at any part of your body and it's literally vibrating. 99.9% of the universe is all vibration and energy. And there's a speck that's out there that holds it all together. All right. What is that speck? We don't know, but there's a speck. Everything else is just vibration and energy.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and we call that the mother, okay, then that energy of the divine, that flow and that frequency exists in everything. And so that means we're all interconnected. There's nothing that's disconnected, even from this air to me to you, and all the way to my wife at home and my son who's in school right now, is all connected. Okay. And I can feel them, which is why when something happens to somebody's kid, you feel that, right?
Yeah.
When something happens to a loved one or there's some chaos in the world, you're like, what the hell just happened? Or the days are off or the moon is doing something crazy. You feel it. Like that's how connected we are to everything in the world. The third principle is everything's correspondence. So as above, so below. And that means as within, so without. You can break this down to the universe looks like, the cells in your body, right? All the way down to the subatomic level, all the way up to the galaxy. It all looks the exact same. So all this is as above, so below. So how I act is a direct reflection of some version of what's inside of me and what's outside of it. So the responsibility that I have is important for me to connect those 3. And that correspondence is the son, if you wanted to call it that, or the child or the daughter. And so you've got the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? That all are connected into this Trinity. And this is why if I wanted to mess with people and manipulate that, if I learned how to do this and nobody knew how to do this, which is why they call the Illuminati what they call it or whatever, I could fuck with the vibrations. I could mess with the aspect of correspondence. I could see when you're out of balance and I could throw you off and then I could think a thing and I could observe you into a different reality. That's how powerful we are as human beings. So when you go back to, and I'll use this principle to kind of ground out like Atlantean times or Egyptians, when they were hella powerful, they were doing magical stuff we don't even close to. They knew this, they collectively observed it, and the person in the middle of it knew it as well, which is why people could walk on water, which is why they could levitate stones, which is why they could do all this magical stuff, because not only did they know themselves, everybody around them knew them. So therefore the bank account balance was never low, right? What they knew about themselves was always able to create magic. And this is the choice that we have as humanity to go down that path or not. Now, where we get caught is the bottom 4 laws, which we got the first 3, and the bottom 4 laws is this square. Because I have it tattooed on my arm, which is this philosopher's stone. Those bottom 4 laws, which is the square, have to stay in balance. You have a law of rhythm. You have a good day, you have a bad day. You make a lot of money, you lose a lot of money. These things happen, right? You have the aspect of polarity, right? And so in polarity, you have good and bad, happy and sad, hot and cold. There's always some extreme of something or another, right? Then on top of that, everything has a cause and effect, which is karma. So that's, 1, 2, the third one is karma. So if I don't actually sit at the seat of cause, then I'm living in the world of effect and I'm a victim. And we'll talk about how to balance these other laws out. And then the last one is gender or generation. So I have to be able to balance the law of gender and honor the feminine. It'd be like, having sex and kind of putting it in. It doesn't feel as good unless you truly combine the masculine and feminine together, right? And so all of that is extremely important to create a child, to create life, right? Like we are walking phallic objects in this world. Like I am injecting myself into Mother Earth. I mean, when you really think about it, right? And so there's a masculinity to all of our beings, whether you're a man or woman here, that has a duty of action to integrate things in this world off of the intention of creation, right? And so all of those bottom 4 laws, whenever they're out of balance, you're getting your ass kicked. If I don't ride the law of rhythm and I don't actually observe the rhythm in my life, then I'm either high or low, right? If I am not looking at the aspect of balance and polarity and I'm always chasing the good, then the bad's going to come kick my ass because I'm not loving the bad. If I don't actually sit at the seat of cause at all, and I'm just doing this effect thing and I don't know what that original cause was, then I can't create a damn thing. And if I'm not honoring masculine and feminine, this is where most men that I work with, when I coach them, they are fucking off their feminine energy. The world is coming tumbling down. And when I did that, I mean, when I didn't know, I was okay, kind of, but things would come and go. When I did know and I tried to do anything to violate that, the whole house of cards came tumbling down.
Well, yeah, because once you know, you become the God
right.
that governs the knowledge you know, and it sets your existence. So now your knowledge sets the rules in which you live by, right? And in your mind, you say, well, if I treat people wrong, then I'm going to feel bad.
Yeah.
Right? When you treat people wrong, you feel bad. But in your mind, if you tell yourself, I treat people wrong, I'm going to feel good, then you're going to feel good by treating people wrong. Right? And this is where I think most people misinterpret. This is why a person can eat bad. They can treat people the wrong way and they can still live, right, life at a higher frequency because they've created rules that are attached to the emotions that they live. Right? And this is where you become the owner and the operator of your life. It's not until you start living against yourself. Right? And you decide to punish yourself. Right? To where now everything that you're doing is going against what you know. Because the rules of your life is based on what you know. Whether you fool and try to deceive yourself, there's a subconscious knowing and a conscious knowing and an unconscious knowing. And those 3 have to be aligned.
Absolutely.
Right? So what you subconsciously think and know, right, and not aligned to what you consciously say, it can create the sickness.
Right.
You telling everybody, oh, I'm all right. But inside you feel terrible.
You feel,
You're making yourself feel worse because if you were able to tell people exactly how you feel, then you could release that and then you could elevate. Right? And so that's where being a truth speaker, you live a different kind of life. And people say, live the truth. Well, they say, live what you know. All right? There's an operation where, and the concept of faking it till you make it works. But it's not really faking it. Right? It's producing it. Right? It's as a manufacturer, before it's done, I'm not faking it. I'm in the process.
Just walking as it.
Right. We're here in a facility where, we produce clothing and things of that nature. They first have to get threaded. Right? They turn into a fabric. You never know what that's going to become. It's going to become a t-shirt. It could become a jacket. It could become a dress. It could become anything. Right? So is the manufacturer faking it to say that, this is a dress? No, we're just not at that process yet. I'm along that way, but I happen to be on the frequency of what this is becoming. So therefore I already am, because you have to be it before it becomes. Otherwise it would never happen. Right? So he can't say, I don't know what this is going to become. And then it becomes the greatest thing in the world. It doesn't operate like that. When the person know what they're doing, this is who I'm about to become. Oh, I am wealth already. I operate it that way. When people see me, they see a leader, they see a man, they see somebody balanced.
Right.
I'm not faking it. I'm not trying to become already am, because I can't get the rewards of that reality until I become it. I can think it. I can work to try to get to that process. But then there is the healing factor that has to go through so that all the junk is not in between me and where I want to be. So matching the frequency of the reality that you wish to obtain is a very powerful thing. And this is why modern day, we have too much deception.
We have a lot of it,
And this is why misinformation is purposely spread by the masters of the world, because there's so much information, they need to deceive the masses. You need to believe this symbol is bad and this symbol is good. I need to limit your knowledge on what you know about these words this organization, this book, this text,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that deception has always been brought out. Again, we go back to the Masons. So 14 presidents been master Masons. Right?
Yeah.
They have a zone where they will purposely, right, put out misinformation and deceive the initiate.
Yep.
So the initiate think this is all there is. Right? But it's not their job to give it to you. You don't become a master until you know.
Right.
Right? If you can't get behind it, you don't deserve to be there. And this deserving frequency. If you ask the average person, what do you deserve? People may say some stuff that's outlandish.
Yeah.
They may talk about what they feel they should, but a lot of times they're doing it from the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
This happened to me, therefore I deserve this, versus this what I put in, therefore I deserve.
Right. Worthiness. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me is I put in this, I deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for it. I've elevated myself to this and you don't have it. And this is what I want people to understand. They might not like it. But if you don't have it, you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Because the things that you deserve, you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So deserving, it is an emotional state, but then there is the law of acting.
Right.
Right. So that's the physical mastery.
Right.
When you master the physical, you know how to act.
Right.
You know how to take action. You know how to make oneself mobile. And when I learned to start mastering the physical, I remember every time I had a thought, I would have to get in motion. So, you know, some people that are so-called diagnosed with, let's say, focus issues that they call ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be stimulated,
Right.
right? So if you have ADHD, what happens is you can be that child in a classroom that's super fidgety,
Yeah.
right? But when, in order to get your focus and get you ready to class, you moving around, you talking to other people, you jumping, you beating on a desk.
Yeah.
You feel me? But
Yeah.
what they don't realize is you're priming yourself, trying to stimulate yourself
Yeah.
so that you have this peak level of stimulation and now you can focus.
Yeah.
But people who have ADHD, they need to be stimulated.
Yeah.
And some of that's how it is with creators. So sometimes for me to generate certain thoughts, I need to move around.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I need that fascia in my body system. But it's like you pulling, I had a race car when I was younger. We pull it, zoom, zoom, and finally get going. That's how we are. We're overstimulated.
Yeah.
Right? And this is causing these deficits to where our baseline to get us to a point where we feel stimulated, and that's enough so that we can start going, right? It's so far behind that we're disconnected. We start going into these bouts of depression and things of that nature. And then we start seeking stimulants,
Mm-hmm.
drugs, video games, women, social connections, right? But what I've learned in the movement, of course, whether it's physical exercise or whether it's just me walking around, like I get ideas, I need to walk around this whole building. By the time I'm done, I got it.
You got it. Yeah.
But I talk to you, I can't just sit here and talk to you. No, I'm fidgeting, I'm moving, I need to be
Right.
stimulated. But also that's what's gonna get me focused.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't be the type of person that's sitting in the boardroom and we're going over a boring idea and I'm supposed to just be focused and you telling me I should have more discipline. No, this is not stimulating to me. And we haven't gotten to the customization of society where people are creating their realities based on what's needed to stimulate their focus.
Yeah.
Because that focus, if you can match that with the passion and emotion, then you can start giving birth,
Mm-hmm.
right? If one understands how to stimulate themselves in a healthy manner,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe goes to the feminine aspect of oneself.
Yep. Receiving. Yeah.
Because the feminine is what we feel.
Yeah.
It starts with an F.
Yeah.
Feminine, what we feel.
Yeah.
Right? The masculine, that's the mind.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we think.
Yeah.
So when you have masculine thinking, you focus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing, person said they masculine, but why, how focused are you then if you're so masculine?
Right.
Now, this gives another way to start judging oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you telling me you can't manifest? Manifest starts with man.
Man. Yeah.
How you a man if you can't manifest?
Right.
No, a manifest is like for a boat, it's the record of things that you have on it. What's the manifest? What's on here?
Yeah.
As a man, what is the record of your life?
Right.
What is your manifest?
It's the wisdom.
So
Yeah.
you can't be a man if you can't manifest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? But it's funny because we think about manifestation in more of a feminine principle.
Right.
But it's a masculine principle.
Oh yeah.
Right? So the focus back to the masculine thinking, for the feminine thinking, the emotions send you down a spiral of options.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should do this. Oh, I could do this. They're thinking like a young girl. She's thinking about, maybe I'll go to Pink. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe we can go this. Maybe we can do this.
Yeah.
Right? And young boys like, I don't care what we do. Let's just go to the store. Let's just go to the first one. That sounds cool with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're masculine, you know how to focus, you know how to think. You're going from one point to another, but that's what logic does.
Right.
Right? And the way you think is the way you decide, the way you produce action. I'm going from one point to another. And in that masculine, and when we talk about creation and manifestation, it's good for creative to get to that point because creatives be so emotional, right? And the more creative you are, the more emotional you are.
Right.
Because that's the more abstract you can be. It's the range of emotion.
It's fuel, yes. Yeah.
The problem with that is that you don't know where to get started. You constantly creating, but you're not deciding.
Right.
Right. And that decision that you make is going to say, I don't need to make a million things. I can make one thing a million times.
Right.
But you need to be stimulated through the process of constantly making things, right? And choosing. So as a man, I had to realize, like, wait a minute. Why am I constantly trying to overstimulate myself by constantly producing and making things? How about I make a choice and then focus on this?
Yep.
Because what's the most masculine animal, right? And the animal kingdom in all existence, it's the bull. The bull sets his sight on a target
and
he
yeah.
goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the masculine archetype. But that's the pure masculine energy.
Yeah.
The feminine is saying you also have discernment, right? You are in connection with those things, right? And that's where the balance comes in so that you're not like a bull in a china shop. You're just running over people, operating with that dark triad of thoughts,
balance,
right? And therefore you don't have balance within self. But I be wanting so young men to understand that it's not that it's just nice guys are supposed to finish last. People say, why they finish? They supposed to finish last.
Right.
Right? You never think about a bull being nice.
Right.
If you're nice, you're letting other people go before you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not here to be nice. I will be kind. I will be joyful. I will be peaceful. Right? All those things.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to be nice because then I will let you step over me.
Yeah.
Sacrificing myself. So then a woman, she's dealing with you and she say, God damn, you so nice. You just let them talk to me any kind of way. You so nice. You let them get that job over you. You didn't go for that contract hard enough. You just let somebody else take it. They spoke to you a certain way. You didn't say anything. Well, how you gonna protect, provide, and produce for me at your highest level, right? If you trying to constantly put all this light to the world, but you're not in connection to your darkness to create the balance. Because if you look at the yin yang, it ain't just all darkness. It ain't just all light. It's a balance. And in that balance, when those pressures meet, that's where that density is. And that density then creates a charge of electricity, and that electricity creates magnetism. And then that's when you have the attraction.
Create the light, yeah.
So that's when a woman is so attracted to you because you have that light and that darkness. And I remember when I carried more light than darkness. And then I remember when I carried my darkness. Then I remember when I started to mash them both. And then I had that density and, oh man, the whole world is attracted now. You know what I'm talking about?
100%.
I got to tell you, back up. The money's so attracted to me, hey, I don't even want that deal.
Yeah.
I don't want that partnership.
Yeah.
But a man has to become attractive.
Oh, 100%.
That's a power, but we don't think about that as a masculine will.
Right. And I call that, I love how you put that, because I call that integrity. How you integrate on a daily basis.
Yes, sir.
Literally is, do you have agreements? I say we move from expectations to agreements. So I don't have expectations of anybody. Do we agree or not agree? If we don't agree, then it is what it is, right? If I'm walking down the street, I will set agreements just energetically with the people around me. Yeah, I remember I was in Atlanta at one point and every car in my car garage got broken into.
Every car. Hold on. How many cars you got?
No, not mine. Not mine. No, it's in the garage. I was in a building.
He said all the cars. It sounded like Jay Leno. I said,
no. So the building was, it was like a high-rise building.
Yeah.
And all of them got, windows got smashed. They got broken into.
Yeah.
And there was no reason for my cars to not get broken into. The Maybach and G-Wagon.
Right.
They should have got broken into.
Right.
Didn't get broken into. So I'm sitting here like.
Maybach and the G-Wagon, folks. Pay attention.
Okay.
Just go. It's just wealth points. We adding up the wealth points.
Okay. No. But I say that it put perspective. It wasn't like, it wasn't a car that people be like, whatever. So, but they didn't break into the car. So my agreement that I said energetically at that container was an agreement that this is safe. So when you set that agreement, and this is the thing about feminine energy is when I set an agreement that I'm going to keep this space safe, which is all a woman wants. Okay. Is to feel that safety. Then at which point you will attract that into your life, and you'll attract the one that's intended for you, depending on how safe your space is.
Ooh, I like that because you said agreements, not expectations, and it actually, you understand the polarity of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because expectation can come off what you feel.
Yeah.
So that's still feminine.
Yeah.
But an agreement is what you know.
Yeah.
We've made an agreement.
Yeah.
We've talked, right? And we came to a conclusion, right? And these are the set upon terms.
Yeah.
So this is what I know what will happen because we've had an agreement.
Yeah.
And when you do that with yourself, right, then it becomes something you know. So it comes back to that knowing versus believing, because an expectation is something you have to believe in. Person would tell you, I believe in, right? So I expect you to be great.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
I agree on your greatness.
And that's how we start talking to each other. That language right there is how we start to move as a collective.
Yes, sir.
We get away from, like I always say, the weak words are want, try, believe, I think. No, I know.
Yeah.
Right? I'm doing this. Right? I have this.
Right.
And even if it's not in my hand, I have it energetically, and it's just going to come right to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm worthy to receive.
Yeah.
And that type of dynamic changes the whole ballgame.
Yeah, because it creates a solid space.
Yeah.
You deal a lot with shape, sacred geometry.
Yeah.
And the density of something. I've really been deep on this concept about density. I talked about this the last episode, on a previous episode with Dr. Wesley, on how we're a very dense generation. Because in our DNA, there's so much information, so many experiences that if you hadn't lived in a civilization that had all of those experiences and access to knowledge and things of that nature going on, then you can only pass down so much in your DNA.
Right.
As there was a time where, high level of occult knowledge was kept from the masses because they understood that if you had the knowledge, then you could rule. And then if everybody has it, how can we rule everything?
Right.
So most people weren't dense. Not in the way that I'm using. They was dense in the sense that they didn't know much. Right. But as I think about it now, I'm like, man, our generation has so much access. We're pouring so much into ourselves. So the next generation is already born knowing that. Right. They don't have to go access it. They can activate it, which is a very more important term for people, I think, to get into connection with.
Yeah.
Right. When I'm learning things, I'm just activating things that I already know. Right. When I'm remembering things, I'm just reminding myself. If I'm being taught, it's a reminder. Right. So a lot of times in our lives, we need reminders. Right. If you're going down a path and you haven't looked at the signs in a long time, you may not know if you're going the right way.
Right.
So you got to go check that map again.
Right.
And in life, a lot of people are lost, but they don't know how to check that map, or they're afraid to ask for direction because you believe you've gotten so far that you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
And the insecurity stops you from having the humility to ask.
Yeah.
But a master asks questions. It actually makes you more powerful and more of a master to ask when you don't know, because that means that you can stay in a constant flow of being connected to what's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I do want to say to that, what you were just talking about, is the map that you were mentioning. The map is literally everything we're creating in our life. Okay. The map are the days of the week. The map are the months of the year, right? The map are the space-time aspects that allow us to tune into our spirit. And if we don't know how to read that map, then we're lost. I mean, even we talked about the 64, right? 64 strands of DNA. Literally the 7 times the 9 plus this 0 dimension gets you into this number 64. It is how you decode your DNA. It's how you understand how to actually create that frequency inside of yourself. It's how you recalibrate and you use every emotion as fuel in order to create divine energy in your life. And there's a very specific map of how you do this. And that shit nobody talks about.
Yeah.
But once you understand that, it becomes like a playbook where you just play the game with this illusion, because they've scientifically proven there is no time. They've scientifically proven there really is no space. And yet what we observe is our projected reality. And there's science behind the way that works.
So how did they scientifically prove? Because there is no time.
Okay.
Now, I look at time as, in the most definitive way, time is a measurement of motion.
Yes.
Right? If you don't move, there's no time.
Yes.
So that's why in the physical world, which is this 3D dimension in where we live, right? Where there's matter, what matters is your motion. Because then your time begins and your motion begins.
Yeah.
You sitting there thinking about something that ain't your time yet.
Right.
It's not until you act.
Right.
Then it becomes your time. And so people are like, when my time coming? Well, when you act like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you believe that there is no time, and how did they solve that there's no time?
I know there is no time because I've
okay. Well, I to check you. I was trying to see if you were serious with it.
Because for me, and well, I'll put it like this: for me personally, for Sean Clayton, there is time.
Okay.
For us collectively, there is no time.
Okay.
For us to be able to move as a collective, we will eliminate time and move in frequency. And so in 1997, Nicholas Gisson had a study to where they were able to understand, like basically overcame the speed of light. So they started to pass photons from one place to another, and they would measure the speed of it. Well, all of a sudden it was going faster than the speed of light. Well, the speed of light, Einstein talks about as the fastest speed, then what the hell is that? And it was going 20 times faster and 40 times faster. And all those things that were happening instantly. So if that's the case, and the light that comes from the sun, we say, oh, it takes this long to get here. Not accurate. It's here. Okay. If it then turns back around and it says, oh, okay, well, we just, studied the new telescope that was out, and I'm looking galaxy away. Well, this is how far it is away. Not accurate. It's all happening at once. It's our collective observation that is now creating new realities. And therefore the construct of time from a linear perspective, yes, it's a useful tool for us to be able to move through this construct so that we can remember it isn't. But once we recognize that from a quantum, they scientifically have proven that this thing is gone. Okay. Then what happens is if we remember that collectively, then this past life stuff goes away. Our generational trauma goes away. We go back and we can witness God as God witnesses us at that moment of creation. And then we collapse into that. We move through frequencies, and now we're starting to interdimensionalize all the possibilities that could exist. All right. So the time thing is a we thing. I cannot eliminate time alone, but I can recognize that it is an illusion. And then at one point I recognize that it is an illusion, and we collectively agree on it. Then we start to do the miraculous. We start to eliminate sickness. We start to have a currency of frequency that has absolutely nothing to do with our time and space and how I action in this world. I can go and then monetize Bitcoin with my hands because I have more energy inside of me than just as much in the universe, because as above, so below, I can make that happen. That's just a stepping stone to the currency creation. And when we start doing that type of stuff, we go from being logical to magical. And that's what we were created to be, because this body is a walking quantum supercomputer. This body is not what we think it is. It's not just like a fuck machine that goes out and works and gets hot and dies. We can live much longer. And they scientifically proven our DNA has the capacity to live for thousands of years. We've just observed ourselves collectively that I'm supposed to die as a black man at 75 years old, or at 82 as a white man, or at this age. And so what happens? We collectively observe each other into death. We're not supposed to do that. And so that's why a long time ago, you have like these biblical stories of they're living for thousands of years. And then, oh, well, it should be this, it should be this, it should be this. And then they start making it smaller and smaller. And now we're like, well, that's kind of dumb to die at 40 or 50. Let's expand that back out again, because we're not really getting much further along. And soon enough, it will be thousands of years if we choose for it to be that way.
So are we in the time of all times then? Because essentially, you have an entire reality that you live.
Yes.
You observe things that I don't see.
Yeah.
Right. If nobody's observing it, there's no existence.
Exactly.
There has to be consciousness observing it for that space to collapse and create reality.
Right.
Now, you, by your actions and your motions, create a chain of events from cause and effect from everything that you do. I do the same thing.
Right.
My brother right here, Solomon behind the camera, he does the same thing. My brother Mechi, everybody that we interact with. But some of us only have so much effect.
Yes.
Right? And that's what they call, and the effect can be so minimum that we call them NPCs, right? You're operating on this cycle, this loop. You wake up, you brush your teeth, right? You eat you some breakfast, you hop in your car, or you get dressed or whatever, hop in your car, you go to work, right? You eat, you get your lunch, you come back, you go to sleep. And then maybe if you're on the weekends, you might go see a game or to the club or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's a very small loop for most people. Most people don't travel, right? It's very small. And most people don't have the wealth to do these things or the will to do them. So most people loop in the time that they live, right? Doesn't have that much effect.
Right.
Then you have people who create big ripples.
Right.
Right? They go around the world. They affect how other people feel, what they dress, what they do, how they think. The radicals are the ones who shift reality.
Right.
Because when you start changing the ideas that people live off of,
yeah, you moving.
Their whole loop changes.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and that's where the creatives come in, the innovators, the technologists, the scientists, right? The revolutionaries. They propagate a new truth to the people, and the people say, I believe off that. So the loop comes from here to the goes over here, or it becomes bigger, or they stop doing any of those things.
Right.
And so you start having all of these massive effects on the world. And so your time lasts as much as your effect lasts.
Right.
Right. There was a sister, she sent me an article, and she had in a quote because she was documenting how Black people can document their lineage.
Right.
But something she said in a quote that I thought was so powerful. She said that when the last person speaks your name, your last name specifically, I believe she said, that's when your soul dies for the second time. And I think that's so profound in a way because I'm a person that lives through legacy.
Yeah.
Right? I understand that if I die today, my works will continue to ripple.
Yeah.
Now they can have an effect on someone else, and that person keeps going and can go for another 1,000 years. Who knows? But when the last person speaks my name is no longer observed. My consciousness, my spirit, it no longer exists.
Yeah.
We speak about Muhammad, Buddha, Moses, right? Hermes, right? All of these speakers and these thinkers, they are alive today as you are in flesh.
Yeah.
Because we still speak their name, we still observe their spirit, so their time is still here.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps there may be a time where those names are not spoken, right? We call Jesus instead of Yahshua.
Yeah.
Right? So a different time for his name has come about.
Yeah.
Right? Which is very interesting within itself.
Yeah.
But as we talk about all times, like, you know, that's when we start understanding the cycles, right? And we start understanding the law of cause and effect more. And we start living intentionally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that intention is understanding the ripples that we create throughout life. And then that where it goes beyond our ego of self. And then we become connected to the all. And then you make a decision in life, how far you want to go and how much you want to affect.
Yeah.
Those who want to change the world, they want to live longer.
Yeah.
That's what it does. A person can tell you, I ain't in it for the legacy. I hear people say it all day.
Yeah.
That's what you believe is this state of piety or moral correctness that you need to tell yourself, right? In order to continue to do what you do because you believe it gives you a more higher ground.
Yeah.
Right? But it's still the same because I know you're doing all these things to have an effect. And if you're doing it to have this massive effect, you're doing it to live beyond your physical flesh. You're doing this to create a legacy. You can't say, you know, you in the field and you're doing construction, but you're not trying to build a house.
Yeah.
Why are you building a house then? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can tell me what your intention is, but I'm looking at your process, and your process is the framework for legacy building.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an interesting idea that people get to this point where they think they need to tell themselves that they're not doing something while they're doing it.
Right.
Because they believe that it gives them a greater, I don't know, a moral standing in the world, makes them more righteous.
What you talk about to me is that self-doubt or that thing that they do is this internal vulnerability because they're afraid to be externally vulnerable. When we truly can expand, I mean, if you think about, you know, whether you're Christian or not, you think about the story of Yeshua getting nailed to a cross. That's a pretty vulnerable moment. And if we say that this person was that powerful of all the things that they were doing miraculously, they very much so could have taken themselves off the cross. But to be vulnerable enough to be exposed in that capacity, all the way to the point of death, right? To not for
I like
us
that.
to be, that's the way to go. For him to know what he knew so well about himself that he was willing to face the judgment of the external illusion to stand in its truth. We don't do that. So that's how you become vulnerable. And then our vulnerability is strength. So for me, when people come to me and they start talking shit about my incarceration, or they bring up something about my sexual abuse, or they talk about like, hey, I used to be kind of a shitty dad, like to my son. I got a 16-year-old, and for a period of time, I was running all over the country, right? And now he lives with me. So we shifted that timeline. But at that moment in time, when I get reminded of that, I recognize that was a space-time coordinate of my moment of ascension for me to look at that and say that I love it as fully as I possibly can. And it's no different than the moment that, if we take the story of Yeshua, him saying, I can love this moment of you nailing me to a cross as much as I possibly can. And this is how we as humanity eliminate sin, because we are no longer stuck in the construct of the judgment, of the righteousness, of what the world has told us what was wrong.
I like that. I heard you talk about messianic codes.
Yeah.
But to live that messianic life, you have to speak truth regardless of crucifixion.
Yeah.
Right? That is that frequency of that Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
I know I'm about to put myself out there.
Yeah.
I know there's consequences that come along with it. I'm not doing it particularly for the consequences, but I need to have this effect on the world by speaking this truth, because this is where the frequency that I live, this is where I emanate at.
Yeah.
So it's going to come with the hate.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to come with the judgment. It's going to come with people wanting to nail me to a cross.
Yes.
People literally want me gone.
Yes.
But guess what? I'm about to wake up and smile knowing that I can do this again.
Yeah.
And everybody else is going to look like, why are you allowing that? Why are you purposely stepping to crucifixion every single day?
Yeah.
Well, because I live in that light of God consciousness, and I love God so much that I'm willing to do his bidding.
Yes.
People that claim that they love God, that they go to the church on Sundays, they pay their tithes, they read their little Bibles, but they don't speak no truth.
Yeah.
And then they believe the masses, and they go along with whatever new progressive idea goes along, and they believe that that is what God needs.
Yeah.
You to go along with man.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And there's a higher truth within yourself that knows what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about the truth. Everybody knows it.
Right.
Right? The truth doesn't require you to discover it. It's already the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't require you to believe it or understand it. And so there's a lot of people who will never really live a life and won't be deserving of being remembered because they don't live, speak, or act within truth.
Right.
Which means you don't work for God. You know what I mean? When you work for God, he gives you everything, including immortality.
Yeah.
He gives his greatest soldiers, prophets, messengers, he gives them immortality.
Right.
You do my work, you'll live forever. No matter how much pain you feel while you're here on
100%.
earth.
Yeah.
Your second life will be better than your first. And your second life exists in the consciousness of men and women, right? Who are still affected by the works that you've done for me.
So one thing I do want to mention there is you were talking about stepping into it every single day, right? And you familiar with Ahriman? Have you heard this?
With who?
Ahriman. No?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a devil you don't know and a devil you know. You've heard of Lucifer, right?
Yes, sir.
You've heard of Satan. You've heard of all this, but you never heard of Ahriman.
Ahriman.
Arhiman.
No.
Crazy, all right? Have you studied any Gnosticism where they talk about these different, versions of these gods? And so Carl Jung, I stumbled upon it because Carl Jung talks about a concept called Abraxas. Have you heard of Abraxas?
Mm-mm.
So Abraxas is this, they call it God of the Threshold. And it's this energy that was created many, many moons ago. And it's this, it's basically like this creature with horns. And it sits as this God of the Threshold. And it is the balance of light and dark. Okay. We could call that Christ consciousness. We can call that Messianic consciousness. We can call that whatever. Okay. We as human beings are to walk as this Abraxas. Okay. Now what Abraxas does in all the pictures, it's holding like a sun and a moon. It's holding a light and a dark together.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen that.
And if you go and you study Rudolf Steiner, who also talks about Abraxas, because I went deeper down a rabbit hole. Rudolf Steiner founded the Waldorf School. They say Hitler was terrified of him because of the kind of occultist stuff that he knew. Rudolf Steiner talks about that there was this entity called Ahriman and Lucifer. Lucifer was the bearer of light, because Lucifer is not, we talk about it as the devil, but it's the bearer of light. Now, if I do have too much light, it's too much, and there's a devil in that. If I have too much darkness, which is the matter, then there's a devil in that. So the polarity we talk about, when we talk about the law of polarity and duality, that extension are where the devils live. We focus on one devil because the other devil wants to be hidden. Okay, we don't talk about this one over here. And when we know this one, every time I talk about this one, I get hit in the head outside. It's like the craziest thing. Like I walk outside and something will hit me in the head. Like nonsense. But this is the devil. We call it a god if you wanted to, but the extension all the way of material based duality, the darkness, how things come into form like this. And Abraxas is the thing that sits in between that puts both of them behind him, and he leads it, she, whatever, energetically leads the dark and the light behind them. And this is why even in the Bible where they talk about Yeshua says, Satan, get behind me. Satan is both. Satan's not Lucifer. Satan's not just Ahriman. It's the polarity and the duality that create all of the potential trauma that exists outside of our present moment. Okay. So when I can know how this is constructed, and I can put this behind me, and I can lead that darkness as an entity in this world, and I can take the light and I put it behind me and I lead the darkness, then essentially the light and the shadow come together to create the reality that we live in. And so when you have to know this thing, you have to know these entities. And that's why for 40 days and 40 nights in the story, whether you believe it or not, those 40 days, even when they go through Lent and whatnot, are very much so intentional for us to know the light and the darkness, for us to be able to sit with ourselves and all of our trauma, all the things that ever existed, and then I can know how the material world is created, right? And most individuals go and they serve this thing that shall not be named because we never talk about its name. We can call it, and even I think in the Gnosticism, they call it, Yahweh and Jehovah. They have different versions of it, but those are also the same entities of duality and polarity that we call Lucifer, and nobody calls it the other thing, that live under this satanic construct. That when we have it serve us, then we lead it back into love, and it no longer is a demon in our life that creates hell. So when you talk about you're going out into the world, if you know how that's constructed, you'll never be thrown up on the cross because you know how the cross is constructed. You know that you can lead it that way. You know that you'll never be in danger because you'll be able to create a different level of life by understanding how to love these two entities. And not love them like, hey, I'm a worshiper of this thing, but you just love them into submission of the leadership of self.
So do you believe in Satan?
I believe Satan is the construct of these two things, but it's also an emanation of God in the duality of love. And it exists for us to remember how to love.
So, well, then in your estimate, Satan is a good thing.
Everything is, well, there's no good or bad, is what I'm going to say, but Satan is a necessary thing for us to learn how to love.
Well, then it goes into justification, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's necessary for love,
yeah,
then that's cause and effect.
Yes.
Because that means that's what it produces. So then you would have to look at it as a good thing, because we say judge a tree by the fruit it bears.
True. I mean, so once again,
is that the way that you perceive it?
I perceive it as, so like, once again, I'm really careful with words around good or bad, happy, sad, any of these things. There's an isness to Satan that creates a very specific vibration for the harmony of our life. So for our lives to be harmonious, yes, it has to exist.
Mm.
Okay. And we have to learn how to love it, whatever that it is, but not in the concept of the love that we've been taught. It's the love that we learn through the experiences of the trauma that allow you to become your fullest self. So I keep having fear or hate my sexual abuse. I keep living under the traumatic constructs of prison, or the suicide attempts, or the sickness, or my back issues. I mean, the feeling came back in my hand when it never was supposed to. If I keep doing those things, then I am giving Satan the power to rule my life.
So deception, ignorance, illusion, those are the greatest tools of Satan.
Yes.
Right? And they keep you away from truth or true spiritual awakening or enlightenment.
Yep.
So then when one would have to say that the actual characteristics of Satan, right, aren't good, intended, or you're saying that, because I was taught that Satan is a collective group of people who intend to do evil. So you can be an individual devil. Right. But if you look at an organization, an institution, an entity that was created to deceive, right, produce illusion and ignorance within the world, that's Satan. They collectively produced this to rule, and there has been orders throughout time, right, that have existed in secret in the shadows that do that. It's to keep you in the darkness, not to bring you to light.
Right.
So the relationship that people have with the word is that Satan is evil.
Yeah.
And when they think about evil, is there to keep you away from your nature.
Yeah.
Right? A devil, someone is a devil when they're not connected to their nature, keeping you off of your nature, being a devil to me. Right? Now, when you see a group of people organizing at a high level, creating wars, creating famine, giving us, food, biological warfare, right? Giving us media that is negative, creating tools that constantly deceive us and make us sick. That is a considered satanic world.
Yeah.
Now, the opposite of that, if you have a godly world, it'd be truth, it'd be order, it'd be justice, it'd be cleanliness, it'd be tonic versus toxic, right? And so if we're already in a world that is ruled by Satan, right, then where is the balance on how that produces the light?
So we are the balance, right? What I, and I teach this to my son and, in my courses, there is no they. We create the they. There's something inside of us generationally aligned through this whole concept of time, right, that we get into, that has validated us to be able to perceive the world a very specific way. And so if my thoughts become things per the double slit experiment and all these quantum studies that have happened, and I'll talk about that, like they did a study where they looked away from a proton field. They were throwing protons at this thing. When you looked away, they scattered. When you looked at it, it showed up through two slits. So if my observation creates my reality, then the chaos of my life, the history that I've been taught, everything that I am learning, right, or that I've been taught, that I can either alchemize into a learning of love is another construct. It's a program. It is absolutely nothing to do with reality. The reality is what's inside of me. So if I know there is no they and things keep happening to me like we have right now.
The pronoun people not gonna like that.
I know. That's okay. They can not like it once they recognize there is no they. And we start to take total responsibility for all of creation, individually and collectively. What will happen is all of that nonsense in that story fades away. All of the evil and the orders you talk about, all of the sickness and the wars and all of the chaos is gone. Absolutely gone. Like if I said right now, all of us said we could collectively as humanity, that planes no longer existed anymore and they would no longer fly, they would drop out of the sky as a collective. If we said all of us were healed right now, as a collective, we would all be healed. If we said we all lived for thousands of years, we would all do it. That's how powerful we are as human beings. And the biggest issue that we have is we believe that the story is so much stronger than who we are on the inside. And so the Satan that exists is only there to remind us that we are God.
So it's an opposing force for you to produce good in the way that you were breaking it down.
Yeah.
Because I know that there are many people who believe that the image of Lucifer, right, with the palms up, down, all of that, is supposed to be an image of light and enlightenment. Right? And that a lot of the knowledge and information got misconstrued when given to the masses. So what are your thoughts in line with that? That the actual image itself, that they show of Lucifer, do you consider that to be a, let's say, instead of good or bad, a positive image?
I feel like that image. So that everything is code for something, is how I put it. Do I feel like that image was created for us to wake up to truly what Lucifer is? Absolutely. Okay. Now, too much of Lucifer is not going to be healthy for us. If I go and I chase after like all the light, I'm going to get burnt up, right? I'm going to live in that. I'm out of balance. So there is a satanic aspect, the dark aspect of me getting too far into it because I'm going to burn to death, right? On the other side, if I go too dark, I can't see, I'm blind. I'll be blind on both ends. So the truth of it is for us to be able to walk in radical balance, we want to call it that, right? To where these entities just do nothing but serve us. And that's the truth from what I know. And so they don't harm me. It's not a thing, you'll get tapped in the head and I feel like that's just divine, hey, good job. When that happens.
So it's funny because Lucifer meaning light bringer or bearer or whatever.
Yeah.
Translated into Morning Star. And it's a Morning Star company.
Yeah.
Right? That makes soy food.
Yeah.
Right? Now, soy, of course, is a endocrine disruptor. Right? It throws off your hormonal balances. For men, start growing your little titties and being all emotional and stuff. Throws off your balance. Now, testosterone is a particular molecule that's necessary for you to be willful.
Yeah.
Right? To produce your will into reality. Right? So as a man, you're supposed to be willful. That's how you act within your godhood. But you can't do God's will if you don't have willpower.
Right.
So it's funny that they would name it Morning Star, and I'm 100% sure that they understand
100%.
where that comes from. But it's also interesting that it says that it's the light bearer or bringer.
Yeah.
But those things are always attached to things that are dark and darkness. Right?
Yeah.
Doing the very opposite of what they say it means and or does. Right? Whether it's the imagery shown of Luciferians and people who are Satanists and believe in those things, they're never shown doing good. Right? As some people would try to explain that this is a good thing and everybody is confused and these images will reverse. And this is why some people cannot ascend because they associate these things with negativity and they're supposed to be a way to teach you how to balance yourself and things of that nature. One can conclude to that there's some logic that concludes into the understanding of light and darkness, that nobody is supposed to walk around completely, right? Like you say, a nice guy, right? If that was the case, then they would finish first.
Right.
But if we look at all great men and women, whether it's prophets, whether these are messengers, number one, they're usually connected to a very dark story. Right? They're sacrificing, people trying to kill them, they killing people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all calamities happening all around them. They're getting crucified. They're always going through all this darkness.
Right.
So then one would concede the fact that if you were to act like God's people, then you have to go through darkness and bring light. You have to go through darkness and light.
You have to go through the whole damn thing. I mean, put it like this. In order to get to a good conclusion or a full conclusion about this, let's talk about God and the original sin and how that even became to exist in life. Okay. So put yourself at the seat of God. Universe doesn't exist. People don't exist. Sitting in the void. What do? You ask yourself, well, who am I? What is this? In any question, there's a hesitation because you don't know at that time. Now, magnify all the energy that could have ever created all potential in life. What does that do? It expands out infinitely, eternally, on infinite timelines over and over again, new realities over and over again. It witnesses itself as it possibly could witness itself all at one moment. And we are inside of that moment. So what is the original sin? The original sin isn't Adam and Eve. The original sin isn't eating the tree. The original sin isn't any of that. The original sin is the hesitation that Source had in asking itself the question of what it was. So in that moment that it asked itself a question, what is this? And it created all reality that could ever exist, which was all out of the love of itself. All it ever wanted to do is for all of its creation is to love it back. It had to create the light and the dark. It had to create the heaven and hell. It had to create the school shootings and the sicknesses. It had to create the wars and everything that ever has possibly existed. The comets hitting the earth. It had to create all of that to experience itself over and over and over again from every possible perspective to truly know itself. It's like us. When I want to truly know myself, I go into the depths of my soul in my tiny little experience of Sean in order to know everything, in order to see, hey, the sexual abuse actually was a gift, to be able to see this and be able to turn it and alchemize it. When we can look back or at that moment in time, and we don't do it to forgive God, but we do it to forgive the judgment that we have placed on God's creation. And so if I say, God, I forgive you for that moment, it's for ourselves to release ourselves from judging what has happened in creation. And when we do that, we then merge back with the divine because we're no longer judging what created us and created every possible experience that has observed us into this reality. And that's how you heal every version of trauma. Now, that's a hard thing to conceptualize for people because all you do is you quit playing whack-a-mole with trauma and past lives and generational and all this other stuff and going back to these moments and let me get stuck at Adam and Eve. I just go back to the moment that God asked a question and I say, God, I forgive you, not for you, but for me to stop judging you.
It's funny because Satan goes to the root word of being an accuser.
Yeah.
Because within that paradigm of judging yourself, you're constantly accusing yourself of things.
Yes.
You did this wrong. You did that wrong. They did this wrong. They did that wrong. And so you're living in an inferno.
Yeah.
Right? You're literally in hell at that moment.
Yeah.
You can't breathe, can't exhale.
Yeah.
Right? You can't let your spirit loose and free.
Yeah.
And so it's so many different planes that this can be looked at. You know, in Islam, we call it Iblis, the one who whispers temptations in the ear. It's to constantly get you off the right path.
Yeah.
Right? So if we look at, like, if there's a marketing, you trying to be focused. Here comes Satan with some talking about some, it's bitches around the corner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you may not know you being Satan, but
Yeah.
you don't realize there's this person on this path. They're trying to get rid of alcohol, and here's your marketing for alcohol. Right? And when you, and this is interesting, same thing with gambling, because right now they say gambling, right, is higher than investing. And we know that that is disproportionately affecting our community, but you have a lot of these celebrities, they're acting in a satanic ring. Why? You may not know that you're working for the devil,
Right.
but you're doing his bidding.
Right.
Because you can't tell me that that's God's bidding, but why do you justify it?
Right.
You're going to justify it because you're going to say, well, I get paid to take care of mine.
Right.
Now, the problem is that you are taking other people off the path. You're not adding to their life. Here's somebody who's addicted to gambling. They lose everything. Their favorite celebrity, who they've been looking up their whole life, gets a deal. They get a contract, they sign, they sell over and say, I am now going to push what you tell me to push.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now you're telling everybody to gamble. You got to the height of your career. You're the most successful ever.
Yeah.
And here comes this man. You don't have to. You got enough money. You ain't got to do that.
Yeah.
But you want more.
Yeah.
You're greedy. You're hungry.
Yeah.
Right? And he says, just sign and I got you.
Yeah.
Right? Activate people to sin. To sin and get you off target.
Yeah.
You know for a fact that people are not winning. There's an outlier. Somebody wins consistently with gambling.
Yeah.
But the house always wins. And it turns into an addiction. Same thing with alcohol. Right? It gets people into the spirit. Another thing that is addicting and afflicting. So now you're operating in this, when people talk about satanic cult, right? The satanic cults are not just some people that might be sacrificing some children or something. It's anybody that's part of an organization that is influencing people in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's very satanic based on the root definition. And then you have people starting to act like the devils because they start accusing themselves. They start accusing you, and you're stuck in this loop of being this victim versus rising above.
Right.
So that's where I want people to understand, because we know in Hollywood, in the industry, it's the most prideful.
Oh, 100%.
Right? But that's what got Satan kicked out. He was prideful. Right? He ain't want to, he said, look, Adam is the one.
Yeah.
Adam, they made of clay. You prideful, you a star. Like, I ain't worried about them people.
Yeah.
You feel? But God, like, but that's my people. What you talking about? They like, hey, dude, you know what I'm talking about? I was made from a whole nother element.
Yeah.
Different. I'm him, I'm them. So you don't care what you do to those people. You don't want to listen. You don't want to do good for God's people, even though those are God's people.
Yeah.
Right? So as you talked about it before, as we was talking about, you know, who's the light, the people are the light.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to do good by the people if you consider yourself to be godly or a God.
Right.
Because you have to do God's will, which is good. So you have to be a force of positive on the planet, or a force of light on the planet. But when you got people And people can always look at it like, why is it that our biggest celebrities and entertainers push liquor and gambling, right? And all these things that we know don't lead people to the right path. And how come you can be so prideful and individual in your ego to say, I don't care, I'm getting money. And what is Satan's job is to get people stuck in the material plane and world, right? So now you're not worrying about the consequences, the spiritual consequences that come along with it.
Right.
That means that you will be existing in a different plane. When people start to ascend, they like, man, I realize I did all these bad things for money.
Yep.
That's because you're going away from the spiritual world and you're starting to understand the relationship that you have with karma.
Right.
Right. And you understand that we are multidimensional beings. So while you was focused on the external reality and mastering that, you are actually starting to become robbed and put in a deficit in the spiritual world.
Right.
And this is what's causing the sickness because you're not aligned with action and self. 100%. So now you've done all this wrong. Yeah. So this is where I can look at the theologies of different religions and I can understand why it was always posed that way because it's a very simple thing.
Oh yeah.
Treat people how you want to be treated. There it is. That's how you spread the light.
Yeah.
If somebody was influencing you to drink and you became an addict and then your path went down the wrong way, you probably would never judge or think that it was the influencer or the celebrity. Then you're never going to see who they got to deal with.
Right.
Right? That's the devil that's in the office.
Yeah.
Right? That's giving the contracts. And then the people that work for him, just little minions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's the thing that those people can sleep very good because they don't have a consciousness about, right, what they're doing. Because they don't even want to see it. A lot of people say, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to know the effects of it. You don't want to hear the effects of your influence, how you constantly keep people to sin or be on the wrong path.
Right.
Me, if I want to help somebody build a brand, like when I teach people in high level club, you have to have a good influence. I'm not going to give you power to do wrong.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
I don't want you, taking the framework and the knowledge and the principles that I built and saying that, look, I don't care how I use my influence. Yeah. No, it matters.
I'm going to go, yeah.
It's not in alignment with the world that I want to see. What you're doing is contributing to the architecture and the building of the devil's world.
Right.
When I'm in competition with that.
Right.
Right? I'm an adversary of the adversary. You know what I mean? The adversary will be the devil within or the devil without.
Right.
Which is really just a devil in any person.
Right.
But now, that's the one that I'm going against. He knows that.
Right.
Because anytime you speak truth, his world is at risk because it's built on lies.
And and here's the kicker right now is to your point, that world is ending. So that's what we were talking before we got started about the end of times.
Yeah.
We are at the point, and there's all these biblical prophecies. I think there's like 57 of them that literally point out the exact date and time of when this thing is going to end. You take, they weren't counting down to zero. So what was the whole concept of Yeshua or Christ? It was a time marker of how things are supposed to split out. If you go back to 2100, Tower of Babel, you have all of this, the Great Flood. You have all these things that happen, quote unquote, at that window of time, supposedly, right? Nobody knows for sure, but that's what they've cataloged it as. This is how you use time as like a space-time coordinate and understand what's happening. Well, you've got zero. Where are we at now? 2000. You have Abraham, who started modern religion at 1900 BC. In 1900 AD, you have the great quantum revolution with all of this new knowledge scientifically that's coming in to support this. So this 0 point, if you go back and forth, you can actually see what they call supersymmetry, right? Or symmetry of that moment in time. So if I know that to be true, then I can also see when death and destruction would come. I can see when all of these horrible things would be happening. Is it going to be death and destruction as we know it? No, because we're looking in a mirror. And when I look in the mirror, my right hand is not my right hand, right? So it's the opposite or a version that looks like it, but isn't the same. And we also have the opportunity to choose something different. So if that's the case, and we know that there's this moment in time coming that's supposedly in 2030, and in that window, all of the global political and every geopolitical events and everything that's happening in the world that are leading to that, like this China-Taiwanese war of when they could actually attack is only in a very specific time. There's 35 million men in China that literally can't find a wife because of what they did with population control that are frustrated. And the only way to actually find something would be to go to Taiwan and invade that. Like this whole thing is a thing. And one of the times that they could do it, they can only do it in 2 months of the year because of the weather. To go from China to Taiwan is either August or September. And how long would it take for everything else to subside for them to be in a position where the economy is weakened enough, right? Or something is taking place and we're not aware, and we can cognitively be programmed out of our mind and not pay attention to it, where they could snap that in. It's going to be sometime either in September, okay, or April in the next couple of years when that would open up, and that would then lead into a cataclysmic aspect of humanity. Okay. And this is all just stuff that if you study cycles of time and economists and geopolitical, like it just is mapping toward this. Plus the prophecies from 2,000 years ago. It's like this shit's fucking crazy. So you see it coming, like, what do I do about this? I've got all these plans. I want to do something different. The death of this world as we know it is imminent because we are to stop moving through this prison that we've been in. We are here to start moving through freedom of frequency, and we are here to start loving each other as a collective and as oneness. The second coming of the Messiah, if we wanted to call it that, is not one person. It's a collective ascension of all humanity. And it could be 800,000 of us or 8 billion of us. It's going to be a set of us that do this, no matter what. And we can choose to wake up together. And I'm not even going to say I feel or I believe. I know that our purpose in having these conversations and doing the work you're doing, the work that I'm doing, is to wake people up to this. And it's not going to be like it's going to take time to unprogram, because we've been programmed. It's taken generations for us to program ourselves into this shit. Love moves that fast. And when we deprogram ourselves out of that, it'll happen in an instant. We all wake up. We all ascend. Everything shifts.
I agree. And that's why the healing factor for us is finding clarity.
Yeah.
The confusion, right? Satan is the author of confusion. He keeps the masses confused.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to know what sacred geometric symbols mean.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be able to understand the synchronicity of numbers.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be able to integrate shadow self. You're not supposed to be able to understand the signs of the body and your consciousness and where they're leading you to.
Yep.
In that state of constant confusion, you can't manifest a damn thing.
Yeah.
You won't make anything happen. So if we can keep the people confused, right, then we can keep them ruled. And the world will last as long as the people are confused.
Yes.
The moment they get vision,
yeah,
and clear up their sight, and they start seeing things for what it is, then that's when his holds on the minds of the people loosens, right? And then that's when the people can start to usher in a utopian era.
Yes.
And the whole idea that it's like, it's the now. It's not later.
No.
It's about what is the reality we want now. You have to feel it now. You have to live it now. You have to be it now. So those people that are confused, when you study the laws of gender, you study the laws of clarity, you study the laws of observation, right? You study the laws of focus, you study the laws of the universe.
Yeah.
It will guide you along the path.
Yeah.
Now, religion in inception was supposed to create it to where man can follow the laws, to where he doesn't get lost, so that the authors of confusion don't lead him astray.
100%.
Now, then you had demerges and archons and devils and demons that start taking the text, creating reiterations of it, giving you different perspective, changing words and deceiving the people so that they can't use it directly.
Right.
Because how the hell could they run the world if there's books that tell you exactly how to stay clear, how to stay focused, how to stay in line, how do you stay a whole person integral, right? So when we go back into American history, when we look at how psychologists started to understand and break open the psyche, we call it psychology. So we look at it as like this field that is esteemed, and right? You go to these professors and these colleges and institutions and like, yo, no, this is a very honorable. They were studying occult and esoteric knowledge on how to break into the desires of human beings and rule them based on keeping them emanating at a low frequency, because all they best psychologists start working with the institutions.
Yeah.
All of the best psychologists they were getting funded by the institutions in the first place. So their work was to produce control. It was to author confusion.
Yeah.
So when human beings started living based on desires, that's when they won.
Right.
Right? That's when they can control wherever you go. If they know what you desire, they can hang that against you. The CIA, they figure out what your desires are and they control you based on that information. They curate a world to get you to go left or right. So that's why Supreme Ascension doing this in your righteousness. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect today.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to be working on self.
Yeah.
You have to know that there's a greater version of yourself that can come into fruition. It's going to take some people longer cycles than others, right? Sometimes you can your cycle right now is an example for someone else, right? But I 100% believe that, God intercedes in our affairs when we have knowledge of him and we have knowledge of ourselves.
Yes.
And that's where the healing comes from. So no matter what trauma you went through, none of that, you've been studying knowledge and you use facts in a way that you break things down because you're very logical and you ground information.
Right.
But the way that you understand it is not the way another person needs to understand it to get the benefit. You love the science. You love to see how things work. You don't like just being told something, right?
Right.
Okay, well, how does that make sense?
Yeah, it's got to mathematically work. Yeah.
And we all different personalities, so we all think differently.
Right.
There are some people who have a mindset to where you give them information about something and they need certain details in order for them to connect to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, why you need to know all that? And it's like, well, that's how my mind works.
Right.
If I don't get those details, then I'm not connected.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still left in confusion.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're giving me clarity.
Yeah.
Right? And that means that I can make the proper decision to move forward.
Yes.
Because if we were in a very healed place, it would be easy for us to connect.
Yeah.
I can say, bro, let's work on this thing. And you would trust because you would say, well, this person is operating on a frequency of truth and integrity and honesty.
And you know that, right.
Now that would be the utopian society.
Right.
It's not the outside of self. It's that I can trust the human being that's in front of me.
Right.
And we're operating on the same code, the same laws, the same frequency. So if I say, listen, I'm working on this company that I'm about to build out, right? I would love for you to partner and or invest with me. Now you gonna say, wait a minute, beyond your due diligence that you need to do as far as business and infrastructure, you're going to need to trust me as a human being. If we lived in a world where we didn't have so much trauma from our experiences, right? Because we could already be perfectly suited to work with each other.
Right.
But it's the trauma that now has to figure out how do we get to trust each other.
Right.
Right. And that's how we are as a people today. And as a society, Americans don't trust each other.
Right.
Americans don't like each other.
No.
Americans may talk about aliens and immigrants, but it's each other that we hate the most. We talk about each other's ideologies, the way we look, what we believe in, our class systems, everything we can think about. It's a very hateful and satanic society that we live in today. And it's a very confused society, and a society that's built on premises of illusions. And so this is where we're breaking right now.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how does you was talking about the tree of life, I believe, and you said something about the daisy of destruction or something of that nature?
Oh, okay. So the flower life, flower life, the daisy of death, all these other things, sacred geometry, how it all works.
What's this concept of daisy of death?
Daisy of death. So the flower life, this guy right here, I probably won't see it, is...
How many circles is that, by the way?
So this one's a smaller version of it. The flower of light that's on the Temple of Osiris is 64 spheres, okay? It's not to be two-dimensionalized, but it's how we perceive it. Terrence Howard talked about it on, Joe Rogan and whatnot. But inside of the flower of life, you have the seed of life. You take the seed of life and you put it on top of each other. You shift it 30 degrees, you get the daisy of death. So all that is that 30-degree shift, and I'm getting a little technical here. The 30-degree shift is us going from a 10-dimensional, like basically a base 10 society to a base 12 society, okay? And a base 10 society is the construct that we've been given. It's this 0 through 9, like these 10 numbers, 0 through 9 construct that we've been given. And those are the dimensions that we currently understand and that can live in as human beings. The 12th dimensional society is then adding another trinity on top of that, on top of it. So you go from like 1 through 9, you add a trinity, including the 0, and you get to this, is when you take that seed of life, which is the internal, and you shift it, and you get this thing called, that's what they're calling the lotus of life, where you shift it. And the daisy of death, they call it this. It's not accurate. This is just the world that we live in as we know it, right? The the where we're going, this 12-dimensional society, how we like the Mandela effect, all this other stuff that's kind of going on where it's like shit's getting weird. This is us shifting from a base 10 to a base 12 humanity or society. And if we talk about the tree of life, the tree of life has 10 Sphirot in it. I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, but I'll ground it in a second. And tied to those 10 Sphirot, the original tree of light that was given had 12. The 12, what ended up happening is you had this Ahriman and Lucifer, this Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you want to call it, ended up coming up here, grabbing that energy and then siphoning off of us living in this base 10 prison that we've been given. Okay. So once we take that power back and we go from base 10 to base 12, what's happening is we're shifting the way that this world looks, and it's going through another timeline. We're like literally on another timeline, but it doesn't look like it, which is why Mandela was dead and he wasn't, which is why you've got Curious George had a tail and he didn't. And Disney had the fairy and
James Earl Jones, he just died.
Yeah.
And apparently he never said, I am your father.
Exactly. But he said, I mean, I even saw a video about it the other day. Where, I mean, you know, where was the guy that played Luke that was saying it again?
Yeah.
You know, I think Questlove posted it. Anyway, but all of this in itself, we're shifting to this new dimension. We don't know what it looks like. It's a dimension of exploration. It's a dimension of infinite possibilities. It's a dimension of frequency. This prison that we've been in is because we've given our power to those satanic entities because they're at the ends of the spectrum in polarity. That's where humans get trapped. And when we take it back in balance and we harvest our own energy and we do this ourselves, that's when all of this shit goes away. And we go from that base 10 to base 12. We collectively do this. And then I don't even know what the world looks like at this point, but I don't think we look like this anymore. Like,
well, I think an easy way to understand it is how scientists have been tracking people that have been taking mushrooms and psychedelics, such as ayahuasca and things of that nature. But the market for psychedelics, as they're trying to grow it, the unintended effect that they say, of course, it's always been sacred shamanic medicine to carry people through journeys. But they saying that everybody's been meeting God.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've been going through these different dimensions.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what happens when you take that plant. And that's why when, you know, like the flower life and sacred geometry, looking at it as a flat, it really just means it doesn't have spirit in it.
Right.
Spirit is breath.
Yeah.
Right? When breath is in something, it emanates.
Yeah.
Right? It comes to life. Right? That's when you give it spirit. And dealing with the world that is not built on ka, it's not built on spirit, it's not built on the ka, right? It's built on a plane of no emotion. That's what business is, that's what capitalism is.
Right.
Nothing to do with no emotion, right? Matter of fact, the better you are in a state where people are in chaos and confusion, and you are a psychopath, and you have no emotion, the better you are in that, because everybody else is panicking and you calm. You are completely detached from it.
Right.
So that's why those psychos, they have done, they've done a test that the top 1%, right, incorporate all psychopaths.
Yeah.
Because they operate in a non-emotional state. But then what we don't realize, we say, well, everybody not psychopath keys. Everybody ain't doing business without emotions. Well, it wasn't made off your psyche. It was made off their psyche.
Right.
That's the difference. It was made off a psychotic psyche.
Right.
It was made with no emotion. Psychology was not based on spirit whatsoever. That's ancient Hermetic practice.
Right.
Right. But when they got it, the Greeks didn't know anything about it. Right. So they studied the knowledge of the mind, which they looked at as more of a material source from the brain.
Right.
So they were studying it from that aspect. So when somebody like Terrence Howard and many others, such as myself or yourself, when we speak on things, you're utilizing voice to speak with spirit.
Yes.
Right. And so most people don't understand, it's like being a great speaker. Most of it is passion.
Yeah.
Right? As I talked about it before, if you want people to walk away with a great experience to where they never forget it, it's not just the mind that you have to connect to, it's the body.
Yeah.
Passion connects to the body.
Yeah.
Not the mind. You feel it. You get goosebumps. Oh.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
God damn, that hit.
Yeah.
And then your body informs the mind. Remember that, sync that, right? Feel that, be connected to that.
Right.
And then that feeling you have, even once you leave, you're still connected to how they made you feel.
Right.
So going back to the body informing the mind and then the mind perceiving that, and then that becomes your reality. As a speaker, you speak with passion to speak to the body of the person so that the mind understands the moment, and then you focus on that immersion.
Yes.
So if we keep the body sick, the mind stays sick. It stays thinking low.
Yeah.
So that's why in the gym and in nature, that's healthcare. In the hospital, that's sick care.
Yeah.
We don't need the Obamacare to become better.
No.
Because that's not going to heal the diseases, the traumas, the issues, the high suicide rates in Black men right now. No, the true healthcare is them working out, having community and opportunity in a place where their spirit and mind can function.
Yes.
But back to this plane, again, Satan keeps you in a material world.
Right.
Right? So where you can't see anything outside. The creativity is at an all-time low. We're in a mental recession.
Right.
We're not in a renaissance where people are utilizing all these resource technology, have all this data and information, but they don't know how to think anymore.
Right.
So now they're not masters of the mental plane. They're stuck in this physical material world.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out, how do I master things? Then they go get more stuff and they like, damn, I don't feel nothing. And then they like, all right, I get it. I got to do something of passion.
Yeah.
So then they start focusing in the spiritual plane. Who am I? What am I connected to? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
They start doing philanthropy work. They start changing the entire way that they live. But then the people that was connected with them on a material plane, like, wait a minute now.
Yeah.
You didn't turn into a Buddha. What happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
You trying to do all this good. We don't know you like that. You feel me? We're not connected to this version of you,
Right.
even though you've ascended past that. And so that's where a lot of people are going to have to come into an understanding of, understanding that once you get your spirit activated, you start speaking with spirit like Terrence Howard.
Right.
Listen, man, I say man too, but he's not just an actor. His spiritual side,
Yeah.
connected to his interest, because spirit has his own interest, flesh has his own interest.
Yeah.
But his spiritual interest and his mental interest is of science.
Yeah.
It's of a completely elevated purpose. You can't tell me that the word actor,
Yeah.
right, is a higher esteem than a word scientist or mathematician or God, right? The
Yeah.
Lord, the owner or master. So why would somebody want to stay in a lower evolved state when they're studying knowledge
Right.
of higher planes?
1000%.
And then when you speak it, I'm like, man, this dude, the way he's speaking with so much spirit that he's emanating
Yeah.
and giving life to numbers. He's giving life to these planes that we've never looked at before.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, because you can't see. The melanin in my eye is different. The
Yeah.
melanin in my brain is different.
Right.
Right? The melanin in my skin, the
It's
way
all
I
different
conduct
frequency.
electricity creates a different vibration,
Yeah.
creates a different rhythm. And the
Yes.
law of rhythm has me now speaking with spirit.
Yes.
And now you like, wait a minute, because you feel the spirit when I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
When Black people move, they feel our spirit like,
Yeah.
oh, y'all moving.
Yeah.
That's that movement.
We create a
Again,
different rhythm. Yes.
we the
100%.
Ka, we are the spirit on the plane.
Yeah.
And people of different spectrums have to be respected as such.
Right.
Right? We can look at one person on the spectrum of white, one person on the spectrum of darkness, meaning, or blackness, I would say, like triple black.
Yeah.
Right? Then you have brown, you have red, you have green. These also represent different consciousness.
100%.
It doesn't say one person can't connect it in the other, but one is the embodiment of one. And when they live outside that plane of their color, because colors are connected to emotions, which are connected to frequencies as well. So it's that you are a brown man, but I can ask you, do you think black? Which is a frequency of original and truth.
Yeah.
I can ask you if you think white. Now, I could be talking in a political sense, an identity sense,
Yeah.
or I could be saying in a godly sense.
Yeah.
Right? It really depends on what you connect to.
Right.
So this is why, because, a lot of people will say black is also connected to death and negativity.
Yeah.
Right? So white thinking, that's where the power comes back and saying that you're not even thinking like a white man. It's not a bad thing. Right?
Yeah.
But you don't own the word white.
Right.
I'm not talking about you. It's like saying thinking feminine. I'm not talking about a woman.
Right.
And that's where the ego tried to possess the word because they know that the connotation comes with positive association. When we get all dressed in all white, we feel godly.
Yeah.
I'm not being like you. I'm being like me.
Right.
Because what I'm doing is I'm emanating light. And that's what I'm representing, that I'm reflecting light. Right? That's what white does.
Yep.
So they were smart for branding themselves like that. Right? But then they tried to give us the brand of death. the brand of ignorance,
right,
and associate that color with characteristics and attributes and traits of negative. So as we reflect and see ourselves, we're upside down.
Right. Oh yeah, we've been flipped all over.
Image comes upside down. We have to flip it.
Yeah.
We have to inverse it to see reality correctly.
Yeah.
But our image is inversed.
Yeah.
So we can't reflect the reality based on us having a correct self-image.
Oh, 1,000%. And us being the spiritual bodies that we've built through the trauma we've held, whether it's the incarceration, whether it's the slavery, whether it's whatever we've been put through. I call it spiritual bodybuilding. Everything I've been put through that was hell.
Right.
We got some big ass spiritual body.
Oh, you said slavery was a good thing, didn't
Oh
you?
yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me, man.
Now, good, not good. I'm not going to say good.
Clip that up. No.
Don't put good in my mouth. But slavery was a gift that we gave ourselves. All right. What I recognize is, if you went and took a person from Africa and then dropped them in the league, they ain't going to do what we do. Right. And I'm not saying it was like a breeding thing, but we got hella strong. Our genes changed and we became some fucking good athletes, right? And that's inside of us. So having that gift now created all of these amazing athletes.
Well, one would say that you go to Hannibal Barca, you go to the Shaka Zulus, you go to, the different people in the plains of, Africa, they got it though.
Oh, they got
the traits.
We got the genetics.
The Jamaicans, they be right up there with us. I ain't gonna lie.
But they also
they also had slavery. With the speed.
They also had slavery too, though. In Jamaica,
not at the level in which
they were colonized. No, true, but they were also colonized.
We had super colonization.
Yeah, we had super colonized. They were also colonized.
We went through experiments. We went through chatteling. We went through losing everything. Not losing. I don't even want to say that because I don't think we lost anything. We went through a period to where Satan was constantly at us every single day to keep us from knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
And everything about his design was to manage and control us.
Yes.
And to keep you away from knowing yourself. He didn't want you to read a word because he understood that you would see and feel yourself in that.
Yeah.
He had to teach you that God was him, not you. Mm-hmm. So he had to disrupt the image that was in your mind.
Yeah.
There was a study that says that 30% of the slaves were Muslims.
Yeah.
And the Muslims were the hardest ones to tame. So they stopped wanting them to import Muslim slaves because they had already too many strong beliefs, their own belief in God. They were the ones that resisted and the most willful, right? And masculine.
Right.
So the masculine slaves and the Muslim slaves are the ones that the slave master hated.
Right.
Right. That's why they had book breaking processes and then they would feed them their own indoctrination and religion. So when we go back to that, I think that though I do agree with you, the processes that we went through in the last 400 to 500 years has made us so dense, so strong, because what we realize is that there was never a period where we ever gave up. Right? The Civil War was us fighting for our freedom. It was never given to us.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of black soldiers went to war to fight for it.
Right.
So I don't want to hear shit about no Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln was a top hat wearing lion fool. You feel me? George Washington was a slave owning stanky breath devil. You know what I'm saying? That was raping slaves. I ain't giving none of them presidents anything.
Yeah.
We fought for it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we got our own freedom. Them brothers were, James Smalls, he was taking ships of the enemies. You know what I mean? John Horse, he was winning wars. And we don't even talk about the Shinnecock Wars and all the wars that we fought with the Native Americans as well, which some of us are, and that's a whole nother conversation and a story. But as we talk about that, that's when you go and we look at the totality, we have to say, and this is where I agree, but I have a different perspective, is that it wasn't slavery that made us great.
No, I agree.
So we were already great and we refused to be anything other than that the whole time because we had so many slave rebellions.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
That means the will never died. We kept inventing. Inventiveness never died. We kept being creative. We kept being defiant. We kept being brilliant. There were some of us don't even know that we probably come from a lineage of a free family.
Right.
That were intellectuals, that were the abolitionists. Throughout every period of time, there were warriors, there were generals, there with all this brilliance. And I need us to know that that never died.
Right.
Now, it got hardened.
Yes.
Right? It turned us into a different kind of people from those experiences, and that DNA and that information of that continued to transfer over and over and over and over until we are who we are today.
Right.
It wasn't that made us great. It was that we were a great people that went to a very dark period, right? And we came out greater.
Right. Now, what I say to that is, per the law of rhythm, we had this ball that was swung all this way. We were given all these, I'm going to call it gifts. We didn't know they were gifts at the time. And when that pendulum got let go, what we can become when we actually let go, trying to hold on to that had held us back, watch out. Right. And that is where this goes right now. That is why we can rise up so quickly and do so many things so quickly and take over different sports and music. And, once we just give me a space, right? Give me a small window. Like, we will bust that thing open every single time. And that is the gift that we gave ourselves through this pullback. And when we see it that way and we quit holding on to that thing, then all of a sudden, sky's the limit, right? And as long as it took us to hold this back, is as long as we will basically be in this light space. And then the gift is when we can snap back up into balance and see it all as a gift, then we'll no longer ride the way back the other way.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how we start to transcend this three-dimensional reality into a space of frequency that allows us to truly go through this ascension process as a collective. And if we start it as a Black community, it will permeate outside of it. We just have to quit being our own enemies. Like, we do that shit, right? No jealousy. It's all abundance. We see ourselves as the energy of the divine. We walk as that. We help each other. We open the doors for other individuals. So it's not about, every time I turn around, like, I can, I've got the white people I can call and everything else. And that's okay. I love them. I love it all. But I got to take care of that which looks like me, because that is part of me. And when I take that level of responsibility and I don't forget about that, and I don't say, oh, I got a little bit of money and I go run off into the country club. You can do that too. Right? But you serve home, and then home will serve the country will serve the world, then the universe, and then it'll keep going.
I love him.
He's not just telling us we can be gods, he's showing us as well.
That young man is so strong, and he's blazing the way for us to change our lives.
Really important way for my son to get the message that I teach. He'll respect it more coming from a young, solid Black man than even him hearing it from me. That's the win,
He is exactly what the world and the youth needs right now.
We're talking about preparing the communities for innovation, right? For transformation. We're moving into a new global economy.
And I love coming out to these events to get that in-person connection.
It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad to have been able to be a part of the presence of him and his team.
It's really important that we have that type of leader pushing that type of message.
This was just to show y'all what's possible. We breaking down barriers, we breaking down borders, and we taking over everything.
Y'all give it up for 19 Keys!
When do you feel you're at your highest self?
I feel like I'm at my highest self when I've been consistent. All of my personal training, working out, properly, taking care of nutrition, reading, and, keeping up with, your own mental growth.
Starting my mornings with meditating. When I go on a juice cleanse and I just have all of this energy, also saying my affirmations every day, that's what keeps me going and lifted.
I feel like I'm at my highest self when I'm in my flow. And that means doing things from a place of creativity and passion. Make sure that I always journal every day and that I have at least 3 things that I'm grateful for that have nothing to do with my accomplishments.
This is
the high level quote.
Are we low level or high level?
Do you believe that America will ever have this period of its spiritual awakening, or that America is at the end of its empire, and that either we have because when civilizations fall, there's usually a period where another civilization takes over.
Yeah.
Now, does that become China? Does that become India? Or is it this collective diaspora of consciousness that becomes this decentralized empire?
So we will, what I'm witnessing is that this country is under cognitive attack. We can call it emotional or spiritual attack. Okay. This has been happening for years. It didn't just start with TikTok and, Instagram and Facebook. It's been going on for like years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's embedded in our food. It's embedded in how we communicate in the news and the media and everything else. That cognitive attack, and because we're the largest consumers of these things, we're just attacking ourselves as a society. Okay. There's whatever fall of this country that it would be, it's not going to be by boat or missile or war or, even like chemical warfare. It's going to be our cognitive demise. And we have an opportunity. This is why I believe AI is important, extremely important right now. Blockchain is extremely important. These are the tools that we're giving ourselves, and even social media, for us to be able to spread word quickly, to put it on a ledger so it becomes trustless and we don't have to worry about if it's real or not. You put AI governance protocols in place so they do the heavy lifting and we can actually go within and do the things that we need to do for ourselves to remember what we are. And then at which point it will be a decentralized society because everything will move across this trustless environment and the dollar will no longer be a dollar. It will be something else that we will trade in. And that whole crypto world and that Web3 world is a world of frequency that those that are tapped into that now, that are also leaning into AI, that also have the ability to then go within, this is how we create this collective ascension. And the US as we know it will not be the same thing.
That's a very interesting point that you bring, because there is a completely different spirit and culture to the blockchain, the Web3 community.
Oh yeah.
It's essentially a world working to build itself out on top of another world.
Yep.
Right? It's people collectively changing their ideas and feelings about money, about collectiveness, about how you do things, about how you can store money or how you can make money.
Yep.
It changes all the ideas and it makes so much more possible. The problem right now with AI, number one, there's questions about whether they believe it's peaking or it's going down. And whether the next generation of like ChatGPT 5 would be much greater to the point where it's not like Apple, right? Where they just came out with a new iPhone, just a new little button, and they like, all right, here you go.
Yeah.
At that point, it plateaus.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is number one, Apple doesn't need to make a better phone.
Right.
The phone has too much already.
Yeah.
So much that people are even trying to go find phones that don't have,
as much
screens and colors and stuff, and trying to go to something more basic without all the stimulation. So Apple doesn't need to outdo itself because it's just going to go to points of greed. What they're going to be is a software company figuring out we've done so much bad to humanity. They are now turning into a health company, right? But that already shifts a paradigm of a company that started off as a design company, right? Getting you to be emotionally connected to a technology that evolved so big that they now have a social responsibility in society and a fiscal responsibility, but to connect it to something that's to say that, number one, they're solving problems that they created, right? In some ways, and then they're solving other problems attached to larger things, like turning every AirPod into a hearing aid now, right? To where they're saying that there's certain sounds and frequencies that you hear throughout the day that messes up your hearing. So by the time you get to age 70, what you say? But they're also doing that with data, right? On your smartwatch. And everybody's starting to become a little more bioconscious of what they're doing. And they're going to have more data than anybody on everybody. Right. And it's going to be interesting to see them turn into a company that manages the lives of human beings, right? From a health and a bioconscious standpoint. And that's going to keep evolving. So it's not going to be their phones whatsoever.
Right.
It's the way they're integrated in your life.
Right.
And they're going to help you design your life, right? You taking pictures of yourself and you trying to figure out how to upgrade yourself naturally.
Yeah.
It's just going to shift the industry of what people are going to be spending, because the health and wellness is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger because people want to start taking control. But all of that to get to the point back of blockchain. And this is where I think human beings at a mass level, slavery becomes a choice. Because when cryptocurrency was first believed and people started to believe in it because it was an idea.
Yeah.
They weren't making no money.
Yep.
The early adopters weren't buying because they just thought they was going to get immediately rich. It was an idea that was sold
Mm-hmm.
about these systems and this type of society we live in the next iteration and the next phase of reality that we're going to. And we're saying that these people that created these systems are not connected to the next phase, and it allow human beings to work together and to trust each other. And it will allow us, based on where we are, because we need new systems to operate. This
Right.
technology is going to keep us fighting each other because this technology cannot host what we are today.
Right.
The same way the government cannot host what the world has become. You have a government that's based on an old constitution that was created at a time where there was no technology.
Right.
There wasn't a global population in the way that we had. We hadn't made these advancements in society. Black people weren't even free.
Right.
Right? So you telling me that all of that doesn't need to be ratified and modernized so that it
100%.
fits a modern construct of where reality is? You telling me, and this is where the sickness is, that every 4 years, we should pick a person that can get the most money, right, from the institutions and the donors.
Yeah.
And we should use them to govern our affairs.
Right.
You telling, we haven't evolved past an old system that they created
Mm-hmm.
when the infrastructure of the world is so contemplated today and so complex that that system wouldn't have been created at the time of the founding fathers if they had knowledge of what reality is today.
Mm-hmm.
They would have said, wait a minute, I don't think it's a job for one person
Yeah.
unless they the messiah of the world.
Right.
So are we electing the messiah and the smartest person of the world? We know for a fact we not.
Right.
We not saying Trump or Kamala is the smartest person in the world.
Right.
Right? We've never elected the smartest person. Ever.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
never elected the most morally right and righteous person.
Right.
Ever. That was never even a criteria for us to elect them.
Yeah.
If anything, they had to be the best deceiver, the person who put up the best illusion. They had to be a little devil because they had to trick us.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
But anyway, as we think about it, we say, damn, as a complex people and as an evolved people, we need the technology that can facilitate our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So blockchain systems make sense. NFTs, they make sense, or they make sense.
They still make sense.
The way that we were using them, of course.
was a little jacked
Yeah,
up.
we were
Yeah,
children
yeah.
that just got it, and it,
Yeah.
you know, let's just
Yeah.
create art. It was,
Yeah.
this is how you can tell how immature we are as a people.
Yeah.
We get this blockchain, and we thought about using it in our old ways, capitalistic ideas.
It's a community building.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
But now you
Yeah.
can buy houses on it.
Yeah.
Now it eliminates infrastructures of you know, paperwork that keeps the ignorant behind the 8-ball.
Yeah.
Right? Because all of these systems were created so that they can continue to control the people. There should never be a lack of access to knowledge.
Yeah.
To the laws and the infrastructures of how they work.
Right.
People say ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is.
Yeah.
Right? Because especially when you hide it
Yeah.
and certain knowledge is only kept by certain classes of people. The way banking instruments and financial instruments work, the way law instruments of trust and things of that nature work, that's kept away from the poor man.
Yeah.
So there's certain things he'll never be able to scale and get to or set up in a certain way. So now he got to go to jail.
Yeah.
Right? Now he has to fail? No. They do that because they know they set up the shit to deceive you in the first place so they keep control.
Yeah.
Blockchain and decentralization is the evolution,
Yeah.
right, of when people start to build out a utopic society.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're instruments to us to think like this.
Yeah.
They're not perfect because we're still people of the old world trying to use new technology in old ways. But then his brother, like my brother, Blockchain Bully, I love my brother because he be teaching so many people in Chicago.
When we truly adopt blockchain as an intersection of all of our society, this whole thing of the devil and the Satan goes away. Because you have it on a ledger, it's a trustless environment, it's fully adopted, and you can't hide behind anything.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the vulnerability and transparency shifts the whole game. And that to me is extremely important because when you merge that with quantum computing and AI, as well as the ability to then broadcast out socially, you know, you then throw frequencies into the world that create massive shifts in humanity. And I feel like AI is only stuck is because the computing system that we kept it in is not a quantum system that allows it to actually accelerate itself in a similar version of consciousness as we are.
Well, yeah, because look at whose consciousness has been made off of.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
It ain't got no spirit.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't expect the technology, this technology right now can only reflect its maker.
Yeah.
Right? So until and it doesn't have enough energy to have spirit.
Right.
Because you got to think the amount of energy it takes for it to mimic us,
Yeah.
right, is a lot more.
Yeah.
We're charged up with more energy.
Yeah.
And when we're deficient of that, right, it's because we're not getting sun, we're not getting energy and things of that nature. So we require more charge to have rhythm.
Right.
I don't care. You can have the potential of it, but if you tired, you go get on that dance floor, you ain't got no rhythm.
Right.
You ain't gonna talk in a certain way. You're not gonna move in a certain way. We are electrical charged beings. And so any entity that we will create in our image requires more energy to be charged on that quantum level.
Yeah. 1000%.
My brother Blockchain Bully, my brother General Hellraiser, Wolf Tribe, you know, there's a lot of brothers that's out there that got the knowledge and the keys. That's the access.
Right.
But of course, that information is never supposed to be, you know, the truth that the masses believe.
Right.
The truth that the masses believe has to be a slave reality and a slave frequency. So that's why I'm always careful when a large group of people agree on something.
Yeah.
Right? I have to question it.
Yeah.
Right? Because this world was never created for you to believe something or to know something that is the key to your freedom.
Right.
Because that topples a system.
Right.
So yes, blockchain, AI, cryptocurrency, Web3, Web4, all of those things, we should be thinking at and looking at closer because we want to build out a new world, not just survive in this one. Learning this world will only allow you to survive in this one.
Yeah.
Because even if you get to a point where you're doing very good in this world, you're still not thriving.
No.
You never feel safe. You're still sick. You're disconnected from self. There's no spiritual awakening connected to it. It's not purposeful. So now you still haven't mastered all planes.
Right.
And so we need a world where people can have success on all levels.
All levels.
Physical, spiritual, mental, which then a byproduct is financial.
Yeah.
And living according to the frequency that you want to be at.
Yeah.
Because some people could be happy with their life producing enough income for them to have abundant based on who they are.
Yeah.
Problem is we seek the number that another man had.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need 10 million because he got 10 million. Well,
Yeah.
you don't even know. You would actually be happy with 4 the way you live your life.
Right.
And what you want for your life. And what you want for your wife and your children and what's required for your peace and joy.
Yeah.
But you're going to sacrifice all your peace and joy to keep going. So now you're in hell and you stressed out and doing things that's not connected to your true self.
Yeah.
Now you just inspired me to do a whole episode going into the blockchain, the Web3 and the crypto world and how that connects to the ascension of society.
100%, bro. Like that's,
Yes, sir.
It's real. Like, I mean, these tools I've been using in order for me to become free. I've freed myself from a lot of work that I normally would have to do using AI.
So what do you do now?
As far as those technologies are concerned?
As far as getting money.
So business-wise, I have a marketing agency, have a Bitcoin mining operation out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, my hometown. One of my hometowns. Yeah.
I've got a Web3 and AI crypto agency that does spin-ups and works with Solana and a couple other companies. I have the abundance coaching program, but that's going super well. And got 5,000 people that have jumped on board with that. Trying to think what else. Oh, I have a exosome and stem cell lab here in Denver, distribution center in Miami.
The stem cell lab.
Stem cell lab.
I was just talking to my brother, Keenan, earlier today in the gym about doing stem cell.
Oh, we do it. Yeah, we got three spots down in Mexico that you can go to because you can't really put them in your body here, but you can put them in your body here and you can use them for aesthetics here.
Why you can't put stem cell in your body?
FDA doesn't like it. They disallow it, but it decreases inflammation. We have clinical trials in Mexico for diabetics and joint repair. So people can just be healthy. It eliminates all the pancreas issues, things along those lines. It's growing my hair back.
Yeah, okay.
It used to be hella. I'll show you a picture. It was like faded.
Yeah.
All the way off.
You had one of them George Jeffersons?
I had a George Jefferson going, yeah. And then even when it tried to come back, when I was out of integrity, it kept fading. That has to do with some feminine shit. Like when you don't honor women, that thing just starts to fade.
You lose your hair?
Yeah. It comes back when you do, So when you honor them, I've seen a correlation to too many men.
You had a balance. He's acidic, toxic.
Yeah, it had some toxicity. So those are the businesses. Part owner in a soccer team in England, Ipswich.
Okay.
We have a couple other things.
How did
Huh?
Oh, no, keep going.
Yeah, I have a resiliency fund that we're just kicking off. Yeah.
How did you start your mining operation in St. Louis, and why did you?
It was an accident.
Oh.
Most of my businesses are happy accidents that were very intentional from a different version of myself. So when I started, I invested, a decent 6 figures into an operation that was not that. And then the guy took it and kind of disappeared. And then one day I was thinking about him and he calls me, he says, "Hey, Sean, I took your money. I know the fund is gone, but I put it in this Bitcoin mining operation and I'm going to give you X Bitcoin every month."
That's cool.
And I was like, all right, appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I trusted him because I knew a version of him in his heart. And I didn't even question. We was gone. I didn't get upset about it. And then it all came back around. But it was 3 years later, and then finally it surfaced itself. And then I had this thing.
What about the soccer team? How did you get involved with that?
So a buddy of mine, once again, he and I met many, many moons ago. He invested in it. I was a part of his investment crew. He's like, "You want in on this thing?" I'm like, "Is this really possible?" And he's like, "Yeah, we've got a whole hold on it. Not a massive percentage in it, but it's still cool to be an owner of a soccer team." Right?
Does it give you any perks?
Yeah, I can go to the games, have, sit in the owner's box,
Can you say
free
which
tickets.
team?
Ipswich.
Ipswich.
Yeah, Ipswich.
Where's that at?
It's, I think it's like Northern England. I haven't even been over there yet. So we just did this recently, but we're going to go in October and check it out. So
I only been to one club, and that's the one in Spain. My brother, Memphis Depay, shout out to him. Took me there. I like it. I wanna go to more football games.
Yeah.
Another thing you said, so most of these things, it sounds like you have connection with people.
Yeah.
Right? Either they hit you up about an investment and it aligns with you, then you take part of it. But which one of the businesses was something that you built up?
So the marketing agency I built up.
Okay.
And the exosome practice or stem cells I built up. So marketing agency, I worked at, so funny when I got out of prison, my first job was selling cars. And before I went into prison, I was in the halfway house selling cars. And that's how I figured I should sell cars when I got out, because I could never do the job I did before, which was this whole staffing thing. And I learned how to market, and I was making 6 figures in the halfway house selling cars. And then I'm like, oh, I can get good at this marketing thing. So I learned how to market and all the digital marketing and Google AdWords and all this stuff while I was locked up, and just read book after book after book. So when I got out, I did it again. Was once again starting to make decent money selling cars when I got out. And then that took me down the path of I started getting recruited by these other marketing firms because I was good at it. Then these marketing firms that scaled up, and then I got to WPP, which is, Group M, Mindshare, Ogilvy, one of the biggest agencies. Google's their client, Nike, like those big ass clients. And I built out this cognitive machine called the NeuroLab when I was in there to help understand brainwave responses and when people were actually moving in or moving out or leaning in and leaning out to advertising, what platforms that they would resonate with. So it gave me a different tool set. And in the middle of Black Lives Matter, I left, started my agency, asked for the same deals they give WPP, even though I'm only buying, a couple $1 million a year. I'm not buying $64 billion in media. And they gave me the deal out of, the guilt that they have. It's like, oh yeah, I'll give you the deal. So it scaled the agency, and we picked up Equinox as a client and several other big ones, got involved with some venture firms, ran some marketing for Nutrafol, and the thing just took off. So that's been, the way I see it in the world is that's a tool that actually helps cognitive realign individuals based on what we embed into the agency was just a loving frequency. Like we do breath work before meetings. We find clients that are values aligned with us, that move in integrity and move in love and, are courageous. And it's not always about the money. Like I'll fire a client if it's something that we're like, hey, we're just butting heads, because we need to move in harmony for that creation to become a reality. So we've been around for about 5 years now. And, well, a little less than 5 years because it was COVID, but we're moving. And
which one has been your most successful investment thus far?
Investment outside of the marketing agency?
Yeah.
So I'd say there was one I took a risk on called Halo Collar. We actually invested in it, and we ran the marketing for them. We grew them from $0 in sales to $8 million a month in revenue.
A month.
A month, yeah. And we took a percentage in that. So we have stake in that company, which I would say is pretty successful. I think the Bitcoin thing is definitely spinning off a nice chunk every month. So that's a cool investment. That's I really am. I mean, it's my energy that's in it, but I'm really doing nothing there.
Right.
And the exosome thing, I think, will be probably the biggest thing that we ever did. But it's all said and done.
So what advice would you give someone, an entrepreneur, right, in this day and age, if you could give a framework to your success, whether it's in marketing or whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's investing, if we can give some people out there some solid science or framework that they could use and take this knowledge and they can build off of?
So the way that I would build is you have to start with spirit first. Most of us look at space-time and we say, I covet the thing that I don't have, which you just talked about. For individuals to know themselves, you have to go so deeply within and know who you are that you lead with spirit and you don't walk in judgment. You don't walk in righteousness. And what'll happen is that vessel that you create, like imagine a cup, that cup will become so empty that so much abundance flows in that people just want to pour in because they're trying to figure out how to top the thing off. And it sounds a little ethereal in some capacity, but it's about as real as it gets when it comes down to the...
We should have been had that off.
I know, right?
It feels like that should have been the vibe.
Right? That would have been the vibe, yeah. But when you do that and you leverage your emotions in order to become fuel for your divine energy, you see all your trauma as your greatest gift. You understand why I created everything to love myself more, and you can put it on this path of constantly walking in that state. The world just shows up for you. And it's not, you have to do the actions, but what happens is like, oh, okay, well, somebody just put a bridge across and you just walk across it. You don't have to go to the bridge anymore, right? You don't have to go and find the investors. You don't have to find the people that are going to support you. They are just there because you're radiating at such an energy that they just kind of gravitate to you. And then life becomes easy and it's blissful and it's peaceful and it's just joy. And so if you're stuck in your trauma, you know, I have an exercise I do where I write down 32 reasons why I created it to love myself. On the 33rd one, on the 32nd one, I get it. And 33, I have something to walk with every day. Right. And so that's that rule of 33 vertebrae. Like we have all these codes inside of us. And so for me to be able to, like, if I get stuck in something and I realize it's bringing me back, I just write down 32 reasons why I created to love myself and it goes away. Right. And so I'm like, oh, okay, that practice works. And whoever I teach it to, it works for them. And they're like, shit, that works. So these numbers that we have that sit outside of us, the 7 days of the week, I know what I'm supposed to do on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday has a very specific energy. And I show up differently on each one of those days because I'm to harmonize into that illusion that's being created for me so that I can walk in that abundance of the day. Each month has a very specific energy associated with it. Hence our astrological signs. Like there's something about that we are supposed to do. So in Gemini season, I do something, right? In Cancer season, I do something. In Leo season, I do something tied to the day of the week. Use that spiritual stuff that we have that's sitting outside of it that seems woo-woo, that is about as real as it fucking gets. And then when you can do that, this whole entrepreneurial game isn't a game anymore. You don't have to go read the book to figure out how to do it. You just do it. Every book that I read was wrong or didn't help me. You know, will learn what not to do. And the way that I function, people are like, you're fucking nuts. You go into Goldman Sachs and tell them you were incarcerated. Absolutely. I want you to know who you were working with. And if you research me, you're going to know what it looks like. I walk in and I say, hey, we need to sit down and like take a couple breaths really quickly because we're out of sync. Right. I sit down and I go in and I will talk to them about my sexual abuse in an investor meeting because I see the trauma show up in them and I hold them accountable to the agreement of breaking through that trauma because that's what we're there for. It's not about the investor meeting. It's about you not becoming your mother and your father and living in your bullshit. That's how we shift the world. That's how we become these alchemists of our lives.
First of all, thank you, because that was very high level.
You're welcome.
Now, from a low level perspective. No, I mean, because high level, that's real high level. That's the real formula. That's actually what people need to know because we are a world of information and facts. Yet people can't produce. So what you said is what they really need. But most people don't know how to take information, right, at a higher level. They can feel what you just said and understand that spirit that you lead with is how they need to lead so that they can integrate with whatever opportunity that they're working to produce. Now, somebody who does marketing and who does investment relations and meetings and things of that nature, from a financial literacy standpoint, right? What is advice that you would give somebody that wants to get into entrepreneurship?
Low level.
Yeah.
See, because my answer is going to be back to the.
Because I want us to have these things to where we have some practical and then we have the higher.
See, I'm like the worst person probably for financial literacy because I look at it all as magic.
Right.
I can't tell you how much money I got.
Right.
And I don't care.
So that's not the aspect you deal with. So what I'm hearing is you have people that do that.
I have people that do that.
Right.
I have people that do that, and I trust the process.
So you are an operator.
Yes.
Right. And when you have a vision, you have to then go and hire people to handle that vision that you have to trust to get things done.
Yes.
Which is it's still high level, but that's the low level of it.
Yeah. I delegate.
Yes.
I can delegate and not be attached and not keep myself in the middle of it.
Right.
I can walk in integrity and make sure that everything that I do, I say I'm going to do and follow through it. And if I don't do it, I'm not finished.
How you manage your life? You have somebody else doing it as far as your schedule, your days, your weeks, your operations. So you have somebody that you hire, an assistant, manager, booking, all of those things.
All those things,
Then I guess I'll be satisfied with that. Who are all the people that you have that's operating your world?
So, I mean, I have a personal assistant and an executive assistant that help me out. My wife is my business partner. She's my intuitor. She sees everything. She sees shit before I ever see it coming. So I trust that. People say don't work with your spouse. Work with your spouse. If you guys, if you can do that. If y'all have we have very similar skill sets. I have a director of operations. I have an individual at each one of those. So we have a group called Mindful Ventures, and inside of that, there's leaders of each one of the groups that lead that. I'm more of the strategic thinker, and I just drop the tidbits, and they go and operationalize it. We have a marketing guild that they have basically learned to earn and action to earn. So we built that on blockchain. It's called Myosin. It's the Myosin DAO. So we built a DAO structure that's tokenized, so I can trust without trusting that these people know how to do the work. So I can hire from that guild at any given time, right? Then
hold on, 'cause that's very interesting. Now, I don't want you to lose your thought.
No, you're good.
But a learn to earn DAO.
Yeah.
That you have people's paychecks connected to?
Yeah, through our own token called the Myosin token.
So how do you track whether they're learning?
So they have to complete a series of actions that's tied to a set of standard operating procedures due to the marketing program that we're putting in place. And once they complete that, then it unlocks their funds.
And those are actions that's triggered on the blockchain.
It's triggered on the blockchain
that you can track to see what they're doing.
They submit the work, right?
Because I was talking with my brother a second ago, and we was talking about a learn to earn funnel to where I was telling he builds our e-commerce brand like that.
Yeah.
But he teaches it. Now he said, I taught it, I gave it to 50,000 people for free.
Yeah.
Very small percentage opened it, very small percentage completed, and very small percentage executed.
Right.
So I was telling him, we're building out a financial vehicle here to be able to fund people, right, that want to have brands.
Yeah.
But I want to make your credit worthiness higher by saying, wait a minute, how about if you go through this program that we're teaching you actually how to build out an e-commerce brand and how to brand, right? Then we can track whether you've completed that or not, test you on that. Then that unlocks the opportunity for you to be able to get access to capital or for us to be able to partner with you.
Yeah.
Because having a dream is not enough to complete the dream, especially if you don't have a team.
100%.
But I love that model. Most people don't know what, DAOs are.
Right.
DAOs are very powerful, and they never had a moment of bubbling.
No,
and I think it's because DAOs require a different level of intentionality and infrastructure set up. So it's not something the average person just picks up and get done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You setting up a decentralized, essentially, system and institution that people can be a part of, that it's not one odor, but there's a set of actions, right, that are followed after it is smart contracted into it. Which, if you didn't follow along with that, we're going to break that down another time. But no, I just thought that was powerful because I love to see that protocol in real life being utilized by somebody at a high level.
It requires no leader. That's the thing. And the community has to do the thing.
Yeah.
And there has to be enough integrity within the structure and the container you built for that to persist itself. And so this has been going on I think 3.5 years now.
Yeah.
And it's working. So.
I think I can't wait till you start doing funding with DAOs because it's a great escrow vehicle.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
But you was about to say the rest.
Yeah, I mean, there's other people on the team. I mean, it's that surround this ecosystem, I say is about 25 people, PR person, you know, I manage my own social media, but I got a big team of videographers that create the crazy stuff that I put out there and whatnot. So
fire visuals, by the way.
Yeah, they kill it. But I draw it out. And that to me, I take very personal. That's
I like that because you are the center mass of your world, but what orbits around you to make sure all these things work is all of these working pieces. And I think that's where we become very responsible, like, I don't even want to use that now. We've been talking about Satan so much. I think we become very responsible in a way that we have elevated people's consciousness by teaching them that, right? Like you see, I got a team with me. We got cameras.
100%.
Somebody may think that they just going to wake up and do what you do.
Right.
Because they're learning what you're learning, but you have to understand the responsibility. And that's where the physical world goes into. You have to act.
Yes.
There has to be people in place. You may be mad at the universe, but it's because you are not operating as you should.
Right.
You're mad that, oh, how come they not picking up something about me? How come I'm not getting invited? What, do you have a PR person?
Right.
You have somebody that does booking for you?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have an executive assistant, a personal one? Do you have a wife that keeps you aligned, that has similar skill sets and traits? Do you have investors that you can work with? Are you just operating in what you're good at and allowing other people to do so that you're not overstressing yourself and overbearing responsibility in areas that you're weak at? All of that, to me, is how you take the laws in real life.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And how you operationalize it.
1,000%.
So that becomes the reality that you're living to where you can have this level of peace and joy because you've been implementing those laws real time.
Oh, yeah.
They don't just stay in your mind.
Yeah, I drive my accountant nut because I just take big ass junks.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like I hired a PR person. Well, like for what? And I'm like, because we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden I'm in Ad Age and Inc. magazine and Fast Company and these things are happening. So you just take the leap and go for it and it'll happen. And we got it all fucked up and backward where we think I got to make the money and then I execute. I'll just go. I'll take the last dollar and throw it at the thing. And then all of a sudden it turns into 20.
What has been your best financial year?
This year.
Can you disclose the amount or close to the amount?
I mean, supposed to be vulnerable, right?
Well, I think it's important a lot of times when people have a high level of knowledge and consciousness that we can see it manifested in these real areas. We may look at somebody that's just finance and we hear their numbers, but when
let's put it like this, I'll put a net worth number out there that's associated with investments, income, and assets. All right, that sits north of $15 million.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations,
right
brother.
accurate. Yeah.
This is what happens when you learn the laws of the universe.
And I'll say this: I was broke 4 years ago. So,
like dead broke.
Like on my last $2,500.
Damn.
Yeah. And now, because I was out of integrity.
And that's what shifted it, was that integrity.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. I think that the world lacks integrity, for sure.
Sure.
I think that we're all, there are some of us, I would say, that's working to become whole. And success is just doing what you set out to get done.
Yeah.
So you become successful when your mind starts working, when you become whole. And you start to live and react and magnify and magnetize those things based on your wholeness projection.
Right.
And so there's going to be a lot more people that are successful when they focus on that thrice greatness.
Yeah.
Right? And mastering those planes. With your story and your vulnerability about the darkness that you went through, from the abuse to overcoming, unaliving yourself, from bad relationships to toxicity, is honorable. And we need more of that so that more people can understand that success is not some straight path of shrewd capitalism.
Yeah.
Right? It's a path of going within yourself and becoming more. Aspirational before ambition. Right? What do you want to become? And what you're becoming going to produce?
Yeah.
That's a completely different reality. Because to be a billionaire, which most people don't need to ever think about becoming, but they're not going to be focused on the billion.
Yeah.
Because you're going to burn out way before you get to that point. You have to focus on what you're becoming and what you're producing and how you can continue to stay passionate about what you're doing.
Right.
And from that, abundance is produced from it. 10,000-fold.
100%.
So I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, brother.
And those that resonate with your story, your frequency, I hope that you all check my brother out, the interviews he had with Terrence Howard, right? The different people that he's tapped in with. When I met him, he was rolling with a billionaire. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't take what my brother says lightly, right? I would take it for truth, and I would learn more about yourself so it makes you interested in learning more about other people that's aligned with that same level. We're working to go to a new earth, a new place, and a new path, right? And it's going to require a society of people who know who they are. 19 Keys, and this has been your high-level conversation. Peace. Till next time.
Oh,
thank
that
you,
was dope,
brother.
bro. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the gods.
So for somebody who is, what I'll say is the gateway to the, what I call the isness or higher balance of your life, has to do with creating balance. These bottom 4 laws of the Hermetic Principles or the 7 laws of the universe or the Chemetics, whatever you want to call them, they require very integrated balance. The one that I see most people get caught in is polarity or duality. They end up looking and saying something's better or worse. Something is good or bad. Something is evil or, good, whatever it might be. And when we can find balance in that, and we can sit at the middle of recognizing that all of it serves us, none of it has been for our demise, or none of it has been for our suffering, that it's all of our greatest gifts. And it's a game we have to play with ourselves, because we've been taught for so long, generationally and through humanity, that it's supposed to be one way. When we do this over and over again, it'll be like a baby walking, and you'll stumble over and over again, but you will eventually start to run. And everything that comes into you, you will be a full alchemist of your life. That and honoring feminine energy, because we've been so patriarchal, so misogynistic. If you don't honor feminine energy, you can't receive anything. So get right with your mom, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend. If you're a man here, and if you're a female listening to this, make sure you're honoring yourself and the divinity within you. And don't take shit from anybody. Be strong enough to be able to receive all the abundance that's coming. So those would be areas that I would say help us move to this higher level divinity. And when we solve those, the other things really start to solve themselves.
I think that we are connected to too many things that stimulate us. And you don't know your healthiest self until you start getting rid of things. And then you start focusing and you start becoming more integral. So I would say, and that goes into mastering the physical plane, right? Whether it's working out, whether it's being careful and watchful of what you eat, fasting from foods, it increases the discipline, which increases the willfulness. So I would believe that if a man wants to start gaining clarity, then he needs to start cleaning himself from the things that is blurring his vision in the first place. That can be women, that can be drugs, that can be overstimulus from social interactions, right? That can be gaming, whatever it is. Take a detox. I talked about it before, and you can drop the video about monk mode, right? Where you go into 30 to 60 days of just fasting from everything, whether it's a digital detox, food detox, and you're allowing yourself to disconnect from all these things of the world and recenter who you are. So when you start adding back to your habits, you're thinking about things that are pure, right? Who you really are and what really emanates from who you are. So as a world that is full of distraction, what does that mean is that is action that is off track, right? You're supposed to be gaining traction in life so that you know that you're growing. And when you're growing, it's because you are learning. And by learning, that means that you're getting more clarity from what you are doing. And what that does is allow you to have consistent and gradual traction in life. But when you have distraction, that's when you're not learning. That's when you're not clear and it's taking you off your path.
He's not just telling us we can be gods, he's showing us as well.
That young man is so strong, and he's blazing the way for us to change our lives.
Really important way for my son to get the message that I teach. He'll respect it more coming from a young, solid black man than even him hearing it from me. That's the win, you know?
He is exactly what the world and the youth needs right now.
We're talking about preparing the communities for innovation, right? For transformation. We're moving into a new global economy.
And I love coming out to these events to get that in-person connection.
It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad to have been able to be a part of the presence of him and his team.
It's really important that we have that type of leader pushing that type of message.
This was just to show y'all what's possible. We breaking down barriers, we breaking down borders, and we taking over everything.
Y'all give it up for 19 Keys!
When do you feel you're at your highest self?
I feel like I'm at my highest self when I've been consistent. All of my personal training, working out, properly, taking care of nutrition, reading and, keeping up with, your own mental growth.
Starting my mornings with meditating. When I go on a juice cleanse and I just have all of this energy, also saying my affirmations every day, that's what keeps me going and lifted.
I feel like I'm at my highest self when I'm in my flow. And that means doing things from a place of creativity and passion. Make sure that I always journal every day and that I have at least 3 things that I'm grateful for that have nothing to do with my accomplishments.
This is
the High Level Club.
Are we low level or high level?
Peace, family. If you want to see us at the highest level, if you want to see us at the top of the podcast charts, this is the way you can help, not just with your views and your attention. First of all, I want to thank you for being here, listening, watching, sharing, but we also need you to comment. This is how support looks like. I need you to comment the best thing you liked about the episode or the worst thing. It's up to you, whatever you would like to share. Then I need you to go and put in them 5 stars. Go to Apple's, go to Spotify's, go everywhere, and I need to see them testimonials, and I need you to go on Apple and Spotify and download and subscribe. The more downloads we get, the better we are able to do in business, and the more we can grow this high level media. Again, I want to thank you all for supporting. Thank you all for tapping in. If you want to book, the booking email is 19keys@19keys.com. Tap in.